coming up, but there it is. Welcome to PDA, early as usual. So I appreciate you guys logging in early for us so that you don't miss anything. Sorry about us coming in late. Um, Dot will be joining us momentarily. We tried to wait a few minutes so we could all come on together, but he's doing some stuff. He'll be on as soon as he can. We appreciate anybody who's watching live and anybody who's watching recorded shows as well. Thanks for viewing. I did want to point out that we have, putting the feed on so I can see if anybody posts questions live. And then the sound first comes on and throws me off. It'd be fun to try. I saw this thing. I'm gonna come back to what I was saying, but just real quick, I saw this thing on a Tosh episode where it's this app that you can like put on your phone, and like when you put headphones in, it delays what you're saying. Like it's you hear yourself talking, but there's like a 3-second delay in it. So what you're saying and what you're hearing yourself say is not the same thing. And like they record people talking while doing this, and like nobody can last more than like 10 seconds before they can't even talk. Like nothing that they're saying it makes any fucking sense because it fucks them up so much.
Well, have you ever had
Anyway.
the echo? Like you get an echo
Oh
in
yeah,
your.
that one's just annoying. But yeah,
It is annoying, but it's
it's really
super annoying.
fucking. It really is. I've had like I can talk, right? We all know I can talk. I've had like an hour-long conversation with somebody where there was an echo the entire time, and it drove me fucking insane. But I don't know if it was like I don't know if it was work or if like I was just like too into what I was talking about to stop. But I just like let it go and put up with it for an hour. It drove me crazy. Anyways, what was that? What I want to. So I was putting and it's a few seconds behind us, right? Every time I do it, every time I put up the live feed to watch for the questions, there's like 5 or 6 seconds before I hit the mute button where it's like this big time delay, and I'm trying to talk and I'm hearing myself talking at the same time. It's very. Anyways, I did want to say that it looks like we got. I think we're 28 and we're at 30. Anybody know what the number is right now? 33? Anybody? No? I'll have to. Now I'm gonna have to go back in and get the whole fucking sound thing. 33 members. There we go. So that was 28 before last week. So it's like 5 new members since last week. So thank you guys. We really appreciate that. That is awesome. And that's got to be, other than maybe like our first week, that's got to be like one of our biggest growth weeks so far. So that's pretty awesome. I'm happy that everybody's tuning in. And please, any of y'all listening, we say this every time, but we love nothing more than you guys to join in live and comment if you got something, if you are just boiling at the seams listening. Let us know and we'll send you an invite, and you can come on video or just audio, whatever you feel comfortable with, or we can just read your comments if you feel more comfortable texting, whatever you want to do. That's kind of the whole point. So please, when we're full of shit, let us know. That's what we would love more than anything, for somebody to come on the show and tell me how full of shit I am. Now, keep in mind, I'm not just gonna say, "Oh, you're right, I'm full of shit." I will debate with you, but please do it, and we'll have some fun. It'd be great. I'll be nice. I promise. 99% sure. unless you say something really fucked up. No, I'm just kidding. So anyways, 5 new guests since last week. That's pretty awesome. Thanks guys for joining in. We appreciate it. Dot just made it on perfect timing. Welcome everybody onto the show. We really haven't talked about anything else yet. And last week during the show, I was looking something up, and one of the things we were going to talk about, but we really got into the topic last week was they removed the statue that was in, is it Charleston? Where was that big? It was where that big riot was, right?
South
Yeah, I think so.
Carolina,
Is it South Carolina?
Well, it sounds about
Charleston,
right.
South Carolina, or something like that.
They had a couple of them this weekend too that they took down in Tennessee, I believe. I'm on it. Go ahead, keep going.
All right. So they took down the statue. Is Lee, right?
Well, yes, there was Louisiana, was Lee.
Oh, I thought that was the one in Charlottesville. Isn't that Charlottesville where it was?
Now you can't give me too many.
I think it was-
Let's see. From City Hall in Louisiana, they removed General Alfred Mountain. I guess he was Confederacy general. I don't know who he is, but
in the place where they had that big riot where all the like white supremacist dudes showed up and like caused a big ruckus, shit went down. It was where the fucking president's comment was that there was like great people on both sides and shit.
yeah, I think that was Lee.
I think it was the one of Lee up on his fucking horse and shit. I remember seeing the picture of it. So question was, are we
Yeah,
I got
Lee's statue in Charlottesville.
yeah, Charlottesville. I gotta be honest with you. I don't know where I come down on this one. Like part of me thinks that like
Oh, it's not Charlottesville, North Carolina. It's Charlottesville, Virginia.
Virginia, yeah, it was in Virginia. Yeah.
Isn't there Charlottesville, North Carolina?
Huh?
There's a Charlottesville, North Carolina, isn't there?
I think so, yeah.
Let me sure I wasn't going crazy. It's in a song somewhere.
No, I think you're right. I'm pretty sure there's a Charlottesville in North Carolina. I think, in fact, I would say, except for this topic, Charlottesville, North Carolina must be a much bigger city because you don't hear about Charlottesville, Virginia talked about that. I don't think that often.
It's in a
Or at
song.
least I don't. Anyways, I don't know. This one's a tough one for me. I think some shit is getting took down that is beyond the pale. Like I think, like if we're like expecting that anybody that we've built a monument to or thought highly of in our past, that if they don't live up to the standards that we have today, then we should cancel them. They're all going to get canceled. I'm like, none of them are going to be able to do that. I don't know how we've gotten to this idea that we think that like, I just don't get it. Like we progress as human beings, we become better as human beings. To expect the fact that people from like 200 years ago would be as knowledgeable and open-minded as we are 200 years later. I mean, that would be kind of sad if that was true. Like I would be really disappointed in us today if we were just as far along as we were 200. Like we should be better than those people. That's the whole fucking point. You know what I mean? Like we learn, we grow, we get better. Doesn't mean that what they did was okay by any means, but you can't judge people based on today's standard. I mean, you just can't do that. And 200 years from now, nobody, no matter how brilliant or woke they are, is gonna miss out on. Like they're gonna get shit on just as much as the people from 200 years ago are right now. I mean, that's how it works. Like that's always how it's worked throughout the history of mankind. We get better, and that's just the way it works. So like, there's got to be some line in the sand where like a guy who was a general in the Confederate Army in a country where we've already banned it, where we've already decided slavery is illegal. That one I get. Like that wasn't just standards of today. I mean, that was the standards of that time that they were fighting against. And maybe we don't build a monument or celebrate pride in that. I get. But like, we were talking before we went live, and they took down a statue of Lois and Clark. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
Lewis and Clark.
Lewis, I always say Lois
Superman
because
and
the
his
fucking
girlfriend?
Superman. Yeah.
They took down a statue of Superman and his girlfriend?
They did. They did, and I mean, who lives to a higher standard than Superman, for crying out loud? You know what I
For
mean?
crying out
Why,
loud.
why would they take down the statue of Superman and his girlfriend?
All right, so good joke, but
He
it
enslaved
wasn't.
God.
It wasn't Superman and his girlfriend. In fact, it was Lewis and Clark, the people that discovered the western part of the United States. Right? That's what
You can't say
the
that
Nobody
discovered. You have to say
discovered
like
the parts of the
explored.
United States.
explored. You're right. It discovered
Conquered?
it.
The
No, they
Louisiana
didn't. They
Purchase.
didn't. They didn't conquer it.
No, all they did was explore it. They went to go look to see where the good land was to take away from the Indians.
Right. They discovered it for the new people to the country. No, it was certainly not land that had never been discovered before, but it was land that was being discovered by the Europeans for the first time. How about that? And nobody had really gone that far west yet. And they did, and went all the way to the ocean, and were the first kind of European people to do that. And
they're the first ones that stepped. Well, they're the first Europeans to step foot in Seattle.
Yeah, well, I mean, they were. I mean, I imagine the Arch in St. Louis is where they started.
Really?
Yeah, and although I imagine there were probably Europeans who had gone past that point, like they were just people that had moved out and settled. They weren't like reporting back and telling, and these were
they had like a map maker and everything, or one of them was a map maker.
Right. They went out and like it was a whole the whole reason they went was to go out and learn about the rest of the country and what was out there and how big it was and how far it went and all that kind of shit. And they were the first ones to do it. They were the first ones to go past St. Louis. That's why the Arch is there. And that's pretty fucking far east. So I mean, you're talking about like, I don't know, 60% of the country that hadn't, been.
Yeah, well, Louisiana Purchase and
I mean, Louisiana would be not
Louisiana
much further.
Texas basically became part of the country around the same time.
Yeah, I mean, Louisiana and St. Louis are not. I mean, Louisiana's not that far west of St. Louis. I mean, if you look at the United States map, St. Louis is not that far east, but it's more than, it's more east than west. It's not in the middle of the country. So I mean,
Louisiana Purchase was like half of the country, right? Like it wasn't just Louisiana. It was actually it went almost all the way to Seattle. Like that was all the area. It was huge. It was like it doubled the size of the existing country.
Yeah, it wasn't that big at the time, was it?
No, that's what I'm saying. This Louisiana Purchase is not Louisiana State.
No, I get that, but I mean, it wasn't half the country because.
No, that's what I'm saying. It was half the country.
It was twice what we had at the time, but we didn't have half what we have now. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
that's what I'm saying.
Probably about like maybe a third of the country.
Okay.
Right now.
Yeah. All right. I buy it. Yeah, I would say Louisiana and St. Louis are probably pretty lined up with each other. Anyways, so
yeah,
the point
that statue
being that, I don't know. They weren't. I mean, to today's standards, they're horrible people. To the time, they weren't. I mean, they really weren't. I mean, they didn't do that horrible of shit for the time. The shit they did wasn't horrible at all at the time. I mean, like, I don't know. That one doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I also understand the argument of like, we don't need to be running away from our history, which that I do agree with. I don't like that the people who are normally saying it are racist assholes that want monuments of people that they madly respect to stay up. And they're just using that as their excuse as to why you shouldn't hate on their, memory of history that's seen through rose-colored glasses, let's say. Like
it's really rough when the people on your side are kind of despicable.
Right.
It's hard to.
Right. Well, I mean, that's what we were talking about last week. Every time somebody tries to talk about men's issues, pretty despicable men you know, line up behind them to say, you know, how wonderful they are. And it's like, well, wait a minute, I don't want you guys saying I'm wonderful. Like, you guys are pieces of shit. I'm talking about some
Yeah.
real issues here. You know
Yeah,
what
no,
I
you're
mean?
absolutely right. There was it was an article, no, it was a show on Netflix, and there was this guy that was talking that believes that men should be able to have sex whenever they want to, and women should just be
Right.
subservient and do it.
Yeah. I'm sure it was an incel.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Who thinks that, you know, the fact that nobody wants to sleep with them because they're a piece of shit is somebody other than their fault.
Absolutely.
There's, I don't, you know, life, liberty, and justice, right, are the only things you're actually entitled to. Everything else you actually have to go out and earn. That's the way it's always been, and it's probably the way it should be. Um, Everything else we've tried has failed miserably. So, you know, that's why communism didn't work. You got to go out and earn it. Nothing is guaranteed to you, especially when it's something that somebody else has to give you. Like, why should somebody just automatically have to give you something like that
Yeah,
they don't want to give you?
exactly.
It's fucking ridiculous.
That's different government altogether.
Yeah. What if, like, you were telling these incel guys that, like, you have more money than I do. You should just be giving it to me because I really fucking deserve it. You think they'd line up to back that idea? I doubt it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's fucking ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, I get both sides of the argument with the statues. I get, like, we shouldn't be hiding from our history, even when it's ugly. But I do think there's a difference between, like, acknowledging our history in, like, museums and history books. A monument is not exactly acknowledging it. I mean, a monument is normally, you do that for somebody that you're proud of, somebody that you want to be
Yeah.
memorialized, right? And so I can see having a problem with memorializing people that did some really shitty things. You know what I mean? Like, that's not cool. And especially people who have been affected by that, having to walk by and see that, and that's kind of shitty, you know. And these things aren't in the middle of nowhere either, where it's like you can go and look at it if you want. I mean, they're like in town hall and shit, you know what I mean? Like, they're in the middle of downtown, and you know, like, it's
You know,
not, you can avoid if you want to.
and the truth about it is that there was a war, and the Confederacy lost.
Yeah,
When that happens, the statues get torn down. You know, all the statues
typically.
in Iraq, they got torn down after
Yeah, it's
they
true.
lost the war. You know, of
It's true.
course,
Yeah, and
a lot of these statues went up after the war, but
right.
still.
Right. And sometimes we look back and think, you know, the victors weren't, you know, sometimes the good people don't win, right? That's not always what happens. And had that been the case, right? If we were looking back, I know this is a crazy, what, you know, but like, if the South had won and then years later we had finally prevailed and gotten rid of slavery, right? And you were saying, like, let's leave you know, people are wanting to tear down the Lincoln Memorial. Well, you know, no. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care that he lost. Like, yeah, he wasn't a perfect guy, but at least he wanted to get rid of, you know, I mean, like, he did some good shit. There should, I think, you know, I think there should be a memorial to Lincoln, right? But this is not what happened. Like, the bad guys lost, and there's a good portion of the population that think that just because they're from the part of the country that fought
Hey,
against the North, that they should be proud of that. Like, that's a little ridiculous.
I don't know. I mean, you couldn't see or anything, but whoever's running the comments on Facebook also to kind of get interactive with that too.
I'm
Because
not
we're in the
seeing
Zoom.
anything. Is there something posted?
No, I'm just saying, just
Oh.
in case.
Yeah, no,
'Cause I
no.
know we're interactive on the Zoom, but Facebook users can't comment directly on the Zoom. They
On
can
Zoom. No,
comment.
no, no. Yeah. I for the last several weeks, I have the window pulled up in case something gets posted. Now, I will say that it doesn't always go up as quickly as it should. So if you post something and I don't see it, I apologize. But for whatever reason, especially in the groups, it doesn't always come through as quickly as possible. But I do have it up. I have it up, and I'm watching to see And I'd love to see what other people think about this. I mean, unfortunately, this is one of these like polarizing things that I really don't get. I mean, like, you're either racist or you're not. I mean, I don't know. I just don't understand it. Right? Like, Lee was a fucking general in the Confederate Army. Like, what is there to talk about here? You know what I mean? Like, if the Lee family, who knew him for reasons other than him being a general in the Confederate Army, you know, want to think highly of the guy, then great, because people are often more than one thing. But like, that's what history knows of him. What history knows of him is that he fought to keep slavery alive, and that's kind of shitty. And I don't know why we would be memorializing that. That's ridiculous.
It's only shitty now because it's a different day and age. But you have to also realize that for a number of years in this country, it was standard practice, or how they say in corporate America, best practices.
Right.
It was a business.
But
And,
I mean,
you know,
there was
the people that were slaves were the products. You know, were the workers to bring forth these products. So,
of course, you're right about that.
We look at that across the world that, you know, child labor is bad. You know, everybody has his moral compass now. But for a number of years in America, it was like a moral compass, not when it comes to the slaves. I was going to use
right, but that statue in particular is memorializing a guy for a very specific time period in which it wasn't completely accepted anymore, right? In fact, the president of the United States and half the country fought against it. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying that nobody agreed with that anymore, but it wasn't just completely acceptable anymore.
Right, anymore, but it was founded on it.
Sure it was. Sure it was.
I mean, like, so when you look at that, you have to say, okay, we started out with this mindset, we changed to this mindset, and that's fine. But tearing it down to be like, oh, well, let's just get rid of it. So it's another way of 10, 15 years from now, people who have no idea about what was going on, they won't know that statue was there.
So, I mean, that's it. I mean, we've kind of hit. Well, so I don't know that you're wrong. I mean, that's the argument, right? And what we were saying is that the argument is typically made not by people who honestly believe what you're saying and what you believe, but people that are just using that as an excuse to keep up statues of people that they actually, think highly of and don't want to see ripped down, right? But I agree with you. Like, we shouldn't hide from our history. My only point is, I don't know that a memorial is the appropriate way to not forget about that. A memorial is not just like, hey, this happened. It's, I mean, you build a copper statue of somebody not so that we can remember how horrible they are. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a sign of respect.
Do you know why there's a statue of Mahatma Gandhi at the Martin Luther King Memorial? And we all know Gandhi was not a fan of Black people.
I did not. Honestly, I didn't know that.
Okay. But so you're saying that they put Gandhi's statue there because of how many people hate him?
No.
Right. That's my point, is that statue of Lee is not there because everybody wants to come by and spit on it. I'm exaggerating to make a point. It's not there because of all the people that want to go and look at this horrible thing that happened in our history. It's a memorial to somebody who fought to keep slavery alive. That's my issue with it. Like, am I saying take Lee out of the history books? No. Am I saying that if you go to a museum and there's an exhibit on slavery and there's a statue of Lee there and it taught, like, great, like, that, you're right. History should not be erased. We got to learn from history, or we're doomed to repeat it. I wholeheartedly believe in all of that, but there is a difference between, like, if Lee was on the Mount fucking whatever, Mount Rushmore, I'd have a problem with that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but there's also, and there's
So,
that,
hold on.
there's
Hold on.
2 slave owners.
You was on
One,
Mount Rushmore. Which
Mount
president
Rushmore.
on Mount? I don't know his route back, but I want to ask you, which president's on Mount Rushmore?
Roosevelt,
Washington.
Abraham, Jefferson,
It's 4. That's it.
and yeah.
It's 4.
Which ones
What about
have
George Jefferson?
slaves?
What?
Which ones have slaves?
2.
But you don't distinguish a difference, because I agree with you on that. That is people participating in a thing that at the time was not considered like wrong, right? It was that, and I mean, I just made a whole thing about how there needs to be a difference between monuments to people who did some great shit and also did some horrible shit because they were alive in a time period where that wasn't considered horrible, and people who are being memorialized for the acts that they did that were considered horrible. Like, he fought to keep slavery alive in a time when we were trying to get rid of it.
Who was the president during that time?
Lincoln.
And Lee was the general of the Confederate Army, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's on Mount Rushmore?
Lincoln.
Lincoln had slaves?
Lincoln, I do not believe he had slaves. If he did, it was in his younger time.
I think his family might have had slaves. He grew up not agreeing with slavery and wanting to get rid of it, which is what he did.
Okay.
And again, I mean, but to your argument, Washington certainly did. It's Washington, Roosevelt, Lincoln, and who's the other one?
I think it's Jefferson.
Jefferson almost certainly did too. But again,
Yeah, Washington and Jefferson are the ones that did.
Right.
Roosevelt did not.
But it's not a monument to slave owners. You know what I'm saying? Like, if Mount Rushmore was built to memorialize people for fighting to own slaves, I would want that taken down too, right? These were people that owned slaves in a time period where that wasn't considered wrong. Was it wrong? Yes. But that wasn't what people thought at the time. They didn't know that, they didn't think of it as doing something wrong. I don't know. I mean, we can get into a whole conversation of how wrong that makes them or not. But the truth of the matter is that, that's what I was saying before, is, we do shit that's wrong, and then we get smarter and we think more and we contemplate what we're doing, and we realize some of the shit that we're doing is wrong, and we try to stop doing it, and we become better people, which is why you can't judge somebody 200 years ago on today's standards, which is why I hope people 200 years from now aren't judging me based on their standards, because I'm going to be a piece of shit then too. You know what I mean? And I don't think I am a piece of shit. You know what I mean? Like, I think I try pretty hard not to be a piece of shit, but I'm sure 200-300 years from now, some of the shit that I do is going to seem really fucking shitty. I think
being pieces of shit is going to be based on your perspective. Toilet bowl water versus toilet paper. They both have two different perspectives on pieces of shit.
Right. Well, and that's what I'm saying is, I think a lot of people today perceive people 200 years ago for being shitty people, despite the fact that had they been alive in that time period, they probably would have been just as shitty. They like to think they wouldn't be, but they almost certainly would be. I almost certainly would have been a piece of shit back then. You know what I mean? Like, based on today's standards, but I wouldn't have known what I know now if I had been alive 200 years ago, and I wouldn't be able to use that information to decide who I am and what I think.
No, they knew then. They knew then what you know now. They just didn't give a fuck. And it's not about giving them the benefit of the doubt. The human brains didn't develop miraculously over the last 200 years or 400 years. It's been the same human brain then that it is now.
Yeah.
But I would
No,
argue
Sid.
that if
I
that
want
was,
the benefit of the doubt.
but if that was true, then why was it that those people were better people than the people 200 years before that? I mean, if you look at the
Well, it's
standards of
morality.
humanity throughout
Morality.
time,
Morality kind of grew
right?
as time went along. Not anyone any smarter than the other one.
Right. I'm not saying that they have bigger brains. I'm saying that time and knowledge has allowed us to open up our minds and thoughts to ideas that we didn't have before. Morality is a good way to describe it, sure. Um, you know, what was considered moral is just different now. I'm not trying to suggest that what was happening was right just because it was 200. It was still wrong. But to judge people on today's standards, I think is silly. Like, you're going to be okay with people 200 years from now judging you based on their standards? Because I guarantee you, it's not going to well for us. Like, we
Even
promise you.
Lincoln, yes, he did free the slaves and he took away slavery and everything. But he didn't believe that white and black men were equal. He didn't believe he believed that they didn't deserve to be kept as slaves. But even when he freed them, he didn't want them to have a vote, have the ability to vote or be the same as equality to a white person.
Yeah, my interpretation of that was less that that's not what he wanted, and it was more a matter of understanding that there was a certain amount of shit that he was going to be able to change and a certain amount of shit that he wasn't going to be able to change. My understanding.
Here we go. So it was actually in a debate. It was in a debate with, I guess, Stephen Douglas.
Yes, that's
And
the
it
name I was
says,
looking for.
I will say then that I am not nor ever have been in favor of bringing about in any way the social and political equality of whites and black races. He began going on to say that he opposed black people having the right to vote, to serve on juries, to hold office, or to intermarry with whites.
Right, and the
And
understanding.
it's a political. It was a political debate. So
Right.
obviously, if he said at the time
Douglas
that
wanted
he said
him to just completely abolish the idea of there being anything different about any, people based on the color of their skin. Lincoln was suggesting, I'm not going to be able to, you know what I mean? Like, just the simple fact that I want to free the slaves has brought on a freaking civil war. There's, only so much I'm going to be able to actually accomplish here. If I go for the whole kit and caboodle, nothing's going to happen, right? I think this is what I can push forward. I think this is the change I can make happen right now. I want to make whatever change I can make happen and not make nothing happen, because when I try to say what you're asking me to do, even my current supporters are going to laugh me out of the house. And I think that was the understanding. So I don't think Lincoln necessarily believed that, but I wasn't there. Maybe he did. Maybe, history has colored it better. That's certainly a possibility. I think that there is some legitimacy to that argument. You can shoot for too much and get nothing. You can make an argument for whether it's worth shooting for too much and getting nothing because that's the right thing, or you can be a pragmatist and say something's better than nothing. I'm going to go for what I can actually get. I think both of those are legitimate arguments, and it's really tough to be the person who actually has to make that decision and make it right. I don't envy anybody in that position, but I just I've always felt it to be kind of just common knowledge that our morality has grown throughout time, and to suggest that people who were raised to believe something completely different and who didn't have the resources that we had to teach us what we believe is right and wrong today, to just judge them based on the fact that despite what everybody was telling them, all the people they trusted, their parents, their relatives, society. One thing that everybody didn't say, well, but that doesn't seem right to me. I mean, you're asking a lot of normal people, I think, to expect them to
Can
go
we
against
honor-
everything that they're taught to believe is true.
Why can't we honor people for being great in part of their life or a piece of their life and not necessarily the whole? I mean,
Wow.
Helen Keller did great, wonderful things for blind people, deaf people, people who are handicapped in certain ways. She was also a socialist and a racist. You know, there's
Right.
still plenty of statues, plenty of museums to her.
Right. Well, and I gotta say, Doc, I'm not even exactly. It's. I don't think you did. I think I'm missing
That's a
the
very good point.
nuance of the argument, because it seems like you've kind of, if first you jumped in saying we shouldn't get rid of them because it's part of history, and then the other argument was that
Well, here's what it is.
we should get rid of everybody. I don't know. I don't understand what you're saying.
Here's
What
what it
I'm
is.
saying is that we can honor them for what
Right.
for being for a part of their being, not their entire. Not honor them as, yes, everything they did was wonderful. No, everyone's evil or has bad things in their closet. I
Right.
mean, we can honor somebody for being a really good general. We can
I can-
honor Helen Keller for being a advocate for handicap. We don't have to say that, yes, we believe in her political views, just that she did something great in this field.
Okay, but what is it that Lee did that was great? I mean, what is it that we're honoring him for?
Well, he was a good general. Like
The
he
guy
won.
that
He won
lost.
quite a few battles.
But I mean, yeah, he lost overall. You're right. He did win some battles.
But
I mean, but the thing is
we talk reverently about some of the Japanese generals in World War II. It's harder.
but we don't build the monuments. Again, I'm not suggesting remove him from the history books, but you're literally talking, and I agree with what you're saying, which is the point I was trying to make about the difference between his statue and Mount Rushmore is none of those presidents none of whom were perfect people are being honored on that mountain for the horror. Like, he was a pretty good general fighting against our president to keep slavery going. I mean, that's what he was generaling for. You see what I'm saying? Like, we are literally building him a monument for being good at fighting against our country to keep slavery alive. That's why I think that particular statue is an issue.
I think
Not
that they
all
built
of
it for other things other than, hey, he fought for this. He was a general. He rose through the ranks to be the general.
Of the Confederate Army.
Him like, hey, we need a general for our army to fight, to keep slaves. No, I don't think that's the case. There was more to whoever he was,
Yes.
whatever the fuck he did that made him at that point in the height of his career. That's what he's more famous for.
But that's what that monument is for. If it was a monument to Lee, not the general who fought against fleeing slaves and against our president, but Robert E. Lee, the guy who also built libraries in poor communities, then great. Lee, yeah, but that's not what that statue's there for. That's not what they're honoring. It's him on his fucking horse in his fucking general's uniform.
He was leading men. I mean, he led
against our country to keep slavery alive. I mean, that's the crazy thing to honor.
You got to realize the country made this department. All he was doing was defending the department. When the country started to develop a moral compass that could have possibly affected business. Right?
Yeah.
So what they do now is like the erasing of, like I said, the erasing of a sin. Let's say, yeah, that was a bad thing to do. Let's take them down. And what happens in the outcome of it is that statue is not there. It doesn't exist. It's another way to take away the evil and the atrocities that this country committed, that it goes out and fight with other countries about doing. When we, like I say, we're the Walmart of this shit. Other
So
countries
since
are the
we've
mom
learned
and
our
pop stores
lesson,
of slavery.
we shouldn't try to
We-
teach other people. I mean, often the people that do the best teaching are people who've learned from their mistakes.
Right.
So what's wrong with that?
This country is not in the business of learning from its mistakes. It's in the business of
Forgetting.
understanding how to look good.
I don't agree with
If
the
we made a
idea that
mistake,
cutting
yeah,
down a memorial to somebody who did something bad is erasing your history. It's erasing the idea that we should be memorializing it and instead be recognizing it for what it was, which is a group of our country that rose up against our president and tried to fight the progress that, thank God, we fought and won against, because where would we be if we had it, right? Where would, yeah, I
Okay,
mean,
let me ask a question. The president, what president was this? This was Lincoln, right?
right,
What number was he?
14, I think.
something like that.
14. Okay. And that's when he wrote was it the Emancipation Proclamation or whatever to
Right,
abolish
Correct.
slavery?
right.
Okay.
But you also know that this country was founded on people saying that the government shouldn't tell them what to do. I mean, throughout history, Americans constantly were saying we want the right to do what we want to do, the
Right.
good and the bad.
And the
And
country
it
was
was
based
an
on the
illusion.
idea of, and while we didn't always do a good job of enforcing it, the idea was whatever you wanted to do, as long as it doesn't harm your fellow countrymen, and slavery doesn't fall into that.
Right, because they weren't considered people or men. They were considered products.
No, I'm saying that
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I don't
They were
understand what you're
they weren't
saying to my
included
point.
in all of that. Living physical black people were not included in all of that.
Right, they were property. They weren't human beings at the time.
What's your point though? I don't. That is true. You're right. What does that have to do
What
with
he's
what
saying is that Southerners were still living by what you said, that they had the right to do what they wanted to do as long as it didn't hurt.
Except that's not what the country was started. Pretending that our Constitution, like, pretending that because we didn't enforce things that we should have, that makes it okay. That's not accurate. Like, yeah, should the country have, way before the 14th president, done something about this horrible shit that yes, they should have, and they didn't. But this one did. He fought against it and said that's not right. We do believe.
Let's look at the question. Why didn't they?
What does that have to do with what we're? I mean, we could talk about how wrong all of that was, which is something I think we all three agree on. We could talk about what we're talking about right now, which is
why didn't they?
Because slavery was good for them at the time.
Yes, which is something like. Okay, go ahead, make the point that I think we all already agree on, but go ahead.
Slavery was good for them at the time.
Yes, it was, which is why they continue to let it happen, despite the fact that our country was not founded on the idea that you get to do whatever you want to, no matter how much it hurts anybody. So
when was the 13th Amendment established?
I don't know. I don't know why the date matters, but let's find out.
It was after the Confederacy, after the Confederate War.
So
because the argument that we're making is that it was okay for Southerners to still keep slaves because our country is based on the idea that everybody gets to do whatever they want to do, regardless of how much pain and suffering it costs. And that is not what our country is founded on. It's shit that people got away with for a long time and that our country didn't do anything about. But one of the things that I think most people recognize is that our forefathers came together and created an idea that we still don't live up to today, that we are still constantly trying to live up to as a society. That doesn't mean that it was okay, like that we said it was okay. It just means that it is still taking us all this time to live up to an ideal of what a country should be. And our country was never founded on the idea that people are supposed to be able to cause whatever pain and suffering they want to. That's not what our country was founded on.
Yeah,
That's
but
not the
also,
belief.
it was founded on the fact that men and women were not created equal. Men, women, and people of different races were not created equal.
That's a completely different argument. You're right. That is true. But your argument was it's okay that the Southerners wanted to keep slaves because our country was based on the idea that we do whatever the fuck we want to do and everybody has to live with. That's not true. It's not what our country.
I said that's not what I said. I said that they get to do without the government telling them what not to do, what to do and what not to do.
Okay. Still not true. Not when what they want to do causes suffering for their fellow countrymen. That was not the ideal that the country was created
You
on.
understand what we're saying, right? That at that point, they didn't believe that Black people were countrymen.
So that makes them right?
I'm not saying it's okay. I'm saying that's what
wrong. Like it doesn't
I
matter.
know that. We all know that they thought it was
So what the
okay.
country
I
was
don't understand what that has to do with what we're talking about. Yes,
So
you're
what
right.
they started on was the
believe
rules
it was
that
okay.
applied to people that weren't Black.
Yes, that's absolutely true. What does that have to do with memorializing a guy that fought for slavery? That is my question, because that's what we're talking about. And
Is
that's
that
where
he
this
was-
argument is
That was
supposed
the
to
South-
be
that was the South's
defending.
hero.
Yeah, he was
He didn't fight
fighting.
on the army.
He was fighting for his countrymen not to be told what they can and can't do by their
The
government.
president. Yeah. They wanted
Why should that be memorialized? That's not a good thing.
Well,
It's
what do you
not
call-
moron
that's-
because they
Well,
wanted
we were
slaves.
memorialized
Even though you
13
feel it's bad.
colonies. The
I couldn't
13
hear you.
colonies didn't want to do taxation without representation. They didn't want to be told what they didn't want to have rules and stuff. They didn't have any representation in. Like that's what our country was founded on, was not being told what they could and couldn't do by a government they didn't have any voice in.
Right. And Lincoln decided that that was allowing them to get away with an atrocity against a massive amount of people that had been stolen and brought into our country. And I like,
Look,
I still don't get what it is you're
obviously we're
trying to
not
say.
saying-
Like, you don't agree with what they did. So why is it that we're memorializing what they did? Who is that for? Is it for people that do agree with what he did so that they can
No,
go and look at it and say,
obviously
this
we
is a
don't-
great guy. Thank God we still have a statue of it.
Okay, being a voice of reason, I don't have to agree with what he did.
For there to be a memorial. Do you know what a memorial,
But
like,
there's
because a
enough-
memorial is not a place for
But
people
there's
that
enough
everybody
people-
hates.
There's enough people who do agree with what he did to memorialize him. So
Okay.
at that point, and not only were there enough people that agreed with him, there were 13 prior presidents who agreed with him.
Okay.
So
I still
it doesn't matter if I agree that it was wrong or right. The point is, what happened, happened. Charge it to the game, but it happened.
So if I wanted to, if I decided right now I wanted to build a memorial to people that trafficked in young children, then 100 years from now, people couldn't say, that's a really disgusting memorial. We should take it down. I don't want to have to look at it every day that some assholes thought it was worth memorializing this disgusting act that happened that none of us agree with, really.
Look at the benefit. Look at who benefits from it. The people who want to erase.
I gotta say, I gotta completely 100% disagree with that argument, because the people that are arguing to take it down are not the people that in your argument benefit from us forgetting about what happened. And the people that want to keep it up are the people that would benefit, the people that you're talking about that still think, you know, that black people are bad and that racism, they still are racist, but they don't talk about it. Those are not the people that are fighting to have this shit taken down. So quite the opposite of what you're saying is what's being taught.
So listen to what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yes, there are people who feel that it should be taken down because what he did was not right.
Right.
there are people who put it up because what they felt he did was correct, was good.
Right. Right. And the
There
people
are
that
the
wanted to
people
stay
now
up
who,
are
hold
those
on, there are the people who decided, hey, you know what? It's a win-win for us if they take it down because it helps erase what he did.
That's
because
not the people that are fighting. For what it's worth,
to fight
the people-
for it. The people who, that's the
the
point.
people who are fighting to
These
keep
people
it,
sit
to
back
take
and
it down,
enjoy the fact that is being taken
aren't those
down
people.
to
Those
help
aren't
erase
those
their
people.
fucking sins.
Watch the news. Like, read a newspaper,
Watch the
go
news. That's a
online. The
business.
people that are asking for that to get taken down look like you, brother, not like me. I'm sorry, but that's
Bro,
true.
I understand that. That's
Okay.
not my point.
So,
That's why I told you the people who fight, bro.
but the
do you
people
know
who wanted to stay up look like
let me give you a bit of information.
okay.
A lot of the people who look like me fight for things that they believe is right. A lot of targeted news goes that's targeted to people who look like me. It's done for a reason. And I promise you that that reason is not for the betterment of people who look like me. It's never been. You have to go deeper than the surface. Get that data. You got people, I am in direct
What
contact
data am I
with
looking
people
for?
who don't come out their house because they fear the air outside is bad because of COVID, because they don't know any better. They just sit there and watch the news all day. The news is a business for ratings, bro.
So you're saying
Give them
that the people that
give them the internet and control the narrative.
people that are out there protesting are not the real people that are deciding what happens, or the people whose opinions
That's what you're wanting to pick from it. What I am saying is that yes, there are people that are protesting that want it taken down because of what he stood for, and there are also people who are like, yeah, cheer them on, take him down, because they get to benefit from the fact that they created these sins and atrocities, and if we can just erase it, cool.
But I don't. How does taking down one statue erase his? I mean, I think it's a broad statement to make that because we take down one statue of Lee, nobody's going to know who he is anymore. I mean, he is in the history.
So right, I like that. So why protest and take that one down anyway? If we just take it down one statue,
because it's not the history books, it's a memorial. A memorial celebrates a person and the action of that person. That's the difference. If it wasn't a memorial, if it was like the house of Robert E. Lee, where you could go and learn about him and how he became that's not a memorial. A memorial, I think that what people have a big problem with is that the statue celebrates the man. It's not a mark of history. It's a celebration of a horrible thing that somebody did.
Does not anything that is memorialized to him celebrate him? Can you go to a museum and look at the things that he has done and look at information on him, see majestic photos of him? Take that photo down of him smiling.
Well, there's a difference. What you're talking about is
anything positive that celebrates him, run that shit, take it down.
But I think having somebody in a library or in a museum isn't a celebration. That is a mark of history. There is a difference between an exhibit in a museum, a paragraph in a history book, and a memorial. Like the memorial to 9/11 is not a mark of history. It's a celebration of the people that died on 9/11. It's to memorialize them. It's to remember how amazing they were. It's not to just mark a time in history. There is a that's the point I'm making. Is there is a difference between marking history and what has happened in history and celebrating a part of history with a memorial. Those are two different things.
Right. So when you look at everything that was built in Washington, the White House.
Okay. It's not a memorial.
It's not. I'm just saying, would you celebrate the White House as utilized as like a symbol, right?
But a memorial and a symbol aren't the same thing, are they? I mean,
what I'm saying is
if we're on this whole campaign of tearing down the bad stuff that America did, you wouldn't have America left.
You're right. I mean, you're right. I don't think we should tear down any buildings aren't memorials. All right, they're not a celebration of somebody's bad behavior. So no, I wouldn't suggest we should tear down the White House. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I'm not suggesting taking down a celebration of somebody who has ever done a bad thing, which I also think is ridiculous. But taking down a thing that's a celebration of the thing that we consider to be bad, I think is a different line in the sand than a memorial to anybody who's ever done anything bad or any structure in the United States that has something bad associated with it. I think there can be, I don't think it has to be one or the other. I think you can draw a line in the sand that says, look, this is a celebration of a guy doing the bad thing that we don't like about him. Not him, but literally as a general fighting against our country to keep slavery alive. We have a memorial to that. And we think memorializing that is silly because it's not a good thing. So why have this big, beautiful structure that suggests this wonderful thing when in fact it's quite the opposite of a wonderful thing? You know, that's not a wonderful thing. Why pretend that it is, right? Am I saying take Lee out of museums or the history books? Which, by the way, that's what I'm saying is how many people are actually going to walk by that statue compared to the everybody who's going to go to high school and learn about the Civil War and one of the generals of the Civil War. Everybody who goes to high school is going to learn about that. Like 100% of the population is going to walk by that fucking statue. If that statue is the only way we're keeping our thought of this horrible thing alive, we got big fucking problems because that's not going to happen with one statue in Charlottesville, Virginia, for crying out loud.
Well,
Okay.
so also what's
You also
going
gotta
to happen,
understand-
what they tried to do was change the school books about how slaves got here.
That's ridiculous. That shouldn't happen.
But
I'm
it did
not.
happen. I don't know.
Okay.
You can look it up. It did happen.
I'm not saying it didn't. I'm saying there's a difference between the two things. I'm with you. I don't think all things that were bad should be banished ever. I don't think anything should be banished. Like anything that's a part of our history, we need to know about. I'm
But
not saying we should hide from it.
It helps get rid of what's the word? It helps get rid of the guilt that the criminal has. Because at the end of the day, it was a crime.
So who should walk by it and feel guilty?
Whoever feels guilty about it. I can't tell you what your guilt is or tell you what you should feel guilty about. That's internal.
Yeah.
You know, what I'm saying is I could look at things from multiple perspectives.
I can too.
I take my feelings out of it. Fuck my feelings.
Yeah.
I could look at the logistics of it.
Well, and you're not wrong. There are lots of people that think exactly what you're saying, right? And I started all of this by saying, you know, while I've argued very sternly for why it makes sense to me to remove it, I get the idea of not wanting to run away from our history. I really, like, we can't do that. Like, that's not good. It's never been good for any society to pretend this shit didn't happen. I don't think that's a good idea. And if anybody who I felt was, if I felt that's what was happening, I wouldn't support it. But I do think that we often try to turn things into right or wrong, black or white, yes or no circumstances. And I don't know that this is that cut and dry. I don't know that the removal of anything has to be us erasing history and trying to hide from it. I don't think it's one or the other. I think there can be lines of division where we say, you're right, erasing anything about the history of slavery from history books is not going to be a good idea. We need to remember that happened and make sure. I mean, we've come a long way in this country. There are plenty of places that either haven't or have, reverted back to, shit that they had moved past on. I mean, we like to think in this country that things can't ever go backwards. They definitely can. It happens all the time, right? And we've seen it happen, right? So making sure that we remember these things and how horrible they are is an extremely important part of our continuation to hopefully move in the right direction, right? And so we can't allow that to happen. But to suggest that it's one or the other, that we're either erasing history or not, when I think that removing the celebration of this horrible thing is just as important to remembering that it happened and moving in a better direction, right? As long as in our country today, based on what we think is right and wrong, that there can be celebrations to people that fought towards slavery, I don't know that that's a positive thing. Like, who is that positive for? You know what I mean? Like, that bothers me, that I might walk past the statue like in front of City Hall or in the middle of a downtown of a major American city and there be a memorial to somebody. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, that bothers me. Now, look, I'm not saying it needs to be removed just because it bothers me. I'm not full enough of myself to think just because I don't like something, there's a problem with it. I wasn't the person who asked them to get rid of it in the first place. You know what I'm saying? I never wrote a congressman or petitioned for it to happen, but I can really understand why people having to walk past that might think that a step too far. And I'm somebody who wholeheartedly believes in the fact that part of being in a society is dealing with the fact that you're not going to like everything you see and hear. Like, I think that's part of the deal, right? But sometimes it might be a step too far. Sometimes what we're asking people to put up with might seem a little too crazy. Like, your City Hall has a memorial to a guy. Like, people who work at City Hall, people who go downtown every day have to deal with the fact that this city is celebrating this. I can see people not thinking they should have to do that, I don't know that that's the same thing as hiding our secrets. If somebody wants to change the memorial to a thing that doesn't seem so grandiose and tributing to the guy, with something that's just a statue of a guy sitting in a fucking tent, I don't know. That's
Right.
just not what I do.
You
But
understand that he was like defending his home, right? Like, he was from Virginia, and he stated that basically that it was Virginia's decision to secede from the Union, and that if Virginia stayed with the Union, he would stay an American general. If Virginia seceded, he would secede with Virginia and fight on Virginia's side. Like, the Confederate War is, I mean, it wasn't, yes, don't get me wrong, slavery was a big giant part of it, but there was actually a war going on, that people were going into your home, fighting, shooting, taking property, taking whatever they wanted to, and it was on your home. It was where you lived. I mean, are you not going to would you not think about defending your own home, your own house, your own state?
well, sure, that is true. That all happened once the Civil War began, right? This wasn't the Union coming in and robbing people, and then the South saying, we're not going to put up with you robbing us, and starting the Union and then starting a war with the North. I mean, that's not what happened, right? I mean, once the war broke out, you're absolutely right. War is always a disgusting, horrible, inhumane, criminal thing. Like, no matter what war it is, horrible, disgusting shit happens every time, and I'm sure on both fucking sides, right? But that doesn't change the fact that it happened because when the North decided to make some rules, not only that slavery be illegal, but that being probably the biggest one, and one in which, had we changed that one rule, I think it's arguable that there would not have been a civil war. I mean, that was the big contention, was all the money that the South was going to lose on free labor. That's what.
Completely agree. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely agree.
Right. And so yeah, I mean, it sucks that that's your home that this is happening in, but they had, I mean, they had a right to decide, you know what, like, to choose to make the right choice at that point and say, you know what, we're not going to split our country in half
Right,
and
but you understand
fight
that he
against
didn't
our
have a choice.
brothers to keep. What's that?
He didn't have a choice. Like, he wasn't he wasn't a politician. He was not
He
anyone
could
in
have
charge
chose
of.
not to join the Union Army. And look,
But that's, I mean, that is, he lived in Virginia. Virginia's government chose to secede from the country. And now, because the North did not want them to secede, the North began the war. I mean,
look,
you
if
could say the South began the war by seceding, but the North wanted to militarily bring them back into the Union.
yeah, so okay, so if 2 years ago Trump had decided to go to war against Canada because they didn't want to ban freedom of fucking press or some shit, and I live in the United States, I wouldn't have fucking agreed to fight for Trump to fucking go kick the shit out of Canada over some shit I don't, that he shouldn't
But
be fucking doing.
But if Canada decided to come into the country because of it, and I lived in Washington State near the border of Canada, I'd pick up a weapon.
Yeah, but that's not what he did. He didn't pick up a weapon and defend his home. He became the general for the army that was fighting to suppress free speech in another country.
And you don't think that that's a better way to, like, defend your home, is to do it with other people that are
No,
also
in a situation like that, I don't want to defend my home if my home is trying to eliminate free press around the world. I don't want to fight that fight.
No, I mean, your wife and children are in your home.
They can move. I can move my children to the other side where they're not trying to fucking keep slavery alive. You know what I'm saying? Like, those are tough decisions, but so is going to war with people that were your friends and family not that long ago because they're fighting on the side that wants to free slavery. I mean, those are all bad choices.
And that's absolutely one of the reasons why a lot of those generals got out of the U.S. Army at the time to go defend their land. Because
yeah, I'm saying I don't agree with their choice to defend it. Like, I'm saying,
I understand, I get it.
And even then, these are like extremely complicated issues that don't have to do with the memorial. They're not like, those are arguments that fucking racist white motherfuckers from South Carolina make as to why they should be proud to have a Confederate flag hanging from the back of their fucking car. And the reason,
just dismiss an argument because of the worst people also agree with it.
no, I'm not dismissing your argument. It is complicated. I'm saying the memorial is not that complicated. I'm saying the memorial itself is not a memorial to those complications. It's a memorial to a guy who chose to fight against our country to keep slavery alive. That's what people see when they see it.
That's what it means to you.
I think that's what it means to most people. I think that's what it means to most people. I don't give that big of a shit about the statue. I really don't. I don't care. I can look at a statue of somebody who did a horrible thing and recognize that. I don't give that big of a shit. I'm saying a lot of people do, and I recognize why they do. And I think they have a right to.
On the other side too.
I don't agree that the majority of people who appreciate that statue are appreciating it a guy who was in a tough spot, who just wanted to defend his home. I don't think that's what most people are thinking. You might be right. I don't know that for sure.
There's a lot of people from Virginia that think that.
If this was 200 years ago, I might agree with you more. Today,
they were literally asking them to not only, they were asking them to invade and kill their family, and friends.
The ones who fought against them.
Right. Correct.
Right. So you could just not fight and not get killed and just do the right thing. That was also an option. Or you could say, you know what? I don't give a damn what this cock picking, president of our country thinks about how we make our money. And if he wants to come take our slaves, he can take them from our cold dead hands, and you can pick up a weapon and you can fight against it. I mean,
and you say it like that, but I mean, they were literally invading their homeland
to fight against the Union Army. Don't pick up a gun. Don't fight with the Union Army. That's it. I mean,
and there probably were some people that made that decision, and there are probably people that died because they made that decision.
Agreed. Yep, absolutely. That is absolutely true. And I don't think choosing to fight with the Union made that any more simple, right? It wasn't like I could either die or I could fight, because you're going to probably die fighting too. So you're literally choosing to either die standing up for the South's right to do whatever the fuck they want to, or possibly die choosing not to fight.
Home?
What would your home need to be defended from?
Invasion from
of what? You're not fighting, right? You're just sitting there on your farm. Troops come through.
Yeah, that's not the way it happens. The troops come through and they look for supplies.
Sometimes that happened. Yeah, they all and in some occasions.
Not only that, they were burning houses and destroying property. I mean, it was war. It wasn't like.
And so you're saying Lee was chilling in Washington. Wait, hold on.
Parade. The guys just didn't parade through.
Okay, so Lee was chilling in Washington with Lincoln until houses started catching on fire. And then he said, wait a minute, I agree with Lincoln and the fact that slavery's bad, but this is a step too far. Now I'm going to go fight for the Union. That's what happened?
What happened?
No, no, it's not.
He is from Virginia. That's where he was from. The country is built by states. That is his state. He was with his state until his state seceded. And then
he was with his state to fight for some pretty horrible shit. I don't know why you're from that state just eliminates the horrible shit part of it. I'm from the state. Who cares if they want to rape and murder children? I'm from Virginia, goddammit. I'm going to fight for Virginia. You don't get to do that. You don't get to say why we're fighting doesn't matter because I live here. That's not, it's not that.
How about the U.S. Army right now? We're in fucking Afghanistan and half the soldiers don't know why the fuck they're over there anyways.
Okay.
And they're fighting for their general. That's it. They're fighting for the army guy who tells them what to do. There are plenty of soldiers, plenty, most soldiers don't know what the fuck they're fighting for.
Right. How many of them are fighting against half of their country despite not agreeing with the reason?
Well, in other countries, quite a bit.
Yeah, we're not talking about a monument in other countries. We're talking about one.
It's anywhere. I mean, you talk about any country. There's going to.
We're not talking about.
Well, what I'm saying is it's the same idea. Just because you want to limit it to the United States, I mean, we're talking about the United States, but there's examples throughout the world.
Yeah, there's examples around the world of some really horrible shit. I don't know why I have to meet those standards in order to make this argument. Not to mention, you can get court-martialed for doing shit that you're ordered to do in this country. There are lines you're not allowed to cross, even when you're ordered to cross them. There is not an absolute, you get to just do whatever the fuck your general asks you to do. And by the way, it wasn't what his superior offers.
I see you seeing the light of day and that I am right because you have no argument. Everyone take a moment to appreciate the fact that Adam is speechless. Now, in this moment of silence, I'd like to put that I am not for slavery. I don't think it was right. I don't think it was a good idea. I just do think that there were honorable men on both sides and that men should be able to be appreciated by something, a part of their life that they did, and not necessarily views. There's plenty of writings that say that Robert E. Lee was not pro-slavery. His family did have slaves. I believe he was planning on freeing them. I mean, and then there's plenty of letters that he wrote. I think one letter to his wife I read mentioned that it was morally wrong to own to own slaves. Let's see. In this enlightened age, there are few, I believe, but what will acknowledge that slavery is an institution, is a moral and political evil in any country. So it's not that he was not super pro slavery or anything. I believe he was defending his home, he was defending his state, and did he was a good general. Well, at points. He did have uh things that weren't so wonderful. He did lose some battles, but he did know what he was doing, and he was a good general for the wrong side. I think it's perfectly okay for people from Virginia to think that he's a great man. I think he went. I think it's hard for. I don't think black people should be persecuted that way, where they have to watch or see these statues that they don't like up, and that's bad too. But in this country, we defend all rights of all people, even the people with the wrong ideas. There's plenty of rules and laws that defend everyone's idea, everyone's point of view, and that's what makes this country great. That's what makes this country available to everybody. And you got to agree with the bad and the good. Everyone has their point of view, and they're allowed to have it. That's what, that's what this country is. Looks like Adam is trying to get back in the room, so hopefully he'll be back in just a second. Well, no one's come on today on Facebook. We do want to encourage people to chime in. I think this is probably a subject that many do have an opinion on, as news has shown. So if you can come in during the live broadcast, it's usually starts at 3:30 because we can never be on time, and it goes for 2 to 3 hours. So definitely come in, chime in, tell us what you're thinking, and just be able to hear an opinion. We want to hear opinions. That's what the whole process is. Well, I think I'm going to take a break while we're waiting for Adam.
get it.
Hey,
All right.
you missed it, but I won the argument.
Yeah. I heard you trying to say something like that while I could still hear you. I don't know. What was the last thing I said?
Oh, only you know that.
No, I don't, because I don't know what y'all could hear.
I believe you were making my argument for me. I think that's usually the way it goes.
I would say I know what I was talking about when I got kicked out. I don't know what the last thing everybody heard was, but I mean that's not even an acceptable argument in our army. Like you can't just say, "Oh, I was ordered to do it" and get away with anything. There are certain rules that
Sure, not anything, but they were being told to invade their home where their family lived, their own home state.
right. But my argument is that you're saying, well, they were just following orders. That's what everybody does. That's not true. Like, how about
no, that's exactly true. They're told to invade areas and they have to
no,
invade
what's
areas.
not exactly true is the idea that just because you're ordered to do it, that makes it okay. What about Abu Ghraib? Those people were ordered to do that and people went to jail for it. You can't just do whatever the fuck somebody orders you to do.
That's not what I'm saying.
And say, I have an excuse for my bad behavior. I was ordered to do it.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying they were ordered to invade their own home states. And that's why many of them chose to defect to the Confederate Army.
Okay. Yeah, because I live in that state is not a blank check to do whatever the fuck you want. I don't. That's
Nobody
not.
said it was.
Well, you are saying that. You're saying it doesn't matter.
Whatever it was, I'm saying it does give you the right to defend your own homeland,
against anything. Because you're saying it doesn't matter what our country was saying or what we were fighting for. That was their state. They had the right to just leave, secede from the Union and fight against us because it was their state. That's the argument that you're making.
Even in the Constitution, you're allowed to defend your own home.
Sure, except what you're trying to make it seem like what Lincoln was doing was just ordering the army to go pillage the South, which is not what happened. You're right. If Lincoln had said, you know what, fuck the South, we don't care what they think, go burn all their houses down, steal all their shit, and kill their families, then absolutely there would be nothing wrong. What?
They did that in Florida.
Yes, bad things happen, but because bad things happen,
and that's that right there, Jack, is how you respond.
No, it's not. I'm sorry, but that's bullshit. What I'm saying is none of that shit happened. Hey, hold on. None of that shit happened when he succeeded. So you're saying he should have used his ESP and looked into the future and said, hey, some bad shit's going to happen. Therefore, I have the right to succeed and go fight. Because he made that decision before any of that shit happened. So that's not just some excuse to say
bad shit happens. Yeah, saying that bad shit happens in war. Bad shit always happens in war.
Yes, that's true.
It goes. That's part of war.
Like, man,
okay.
You can easily ESP that shit. You can easily fucking mind meld that shit.
No, but because you're suggesting some bad shit happened. You're making it seem like the civil army just went through and destroyed everything and left nothing in its wake. That's not what happened. Some soldiers did some bad shit, and to suggest that gives you the right to succeed from the Union and fight against your country because you can predict that some bad shit might happen in the half of the fucking country you live in is ridiculous.
That's not ridiculous to believe that war is going to actually tarnish the earth that you defend.
That's not what I'm saying, and I think you know that that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
it may not be what you're saying, but it's what's going on. It's what happened.
Yeah, it's absolutely the truth.
So both of you guys, just to be really clear on all of this, what both of y'all are saying is that the South had every right to fight against the North and did absolutely nothing wrong. Let's be clear. That's the argument that y'all are making right now.
But what we're saying is that, man, people were allowed.
That's what you're saying. I mean, I'm making every argument that anybody would make as to why it was wrong, and you're all saying I'm wrong about it all. So to be clear, you're back in the South and saying it makes total sense that they did what they did. That's what y'all are saying.
Your argument about it is wrong. That's not what I'm saying.
No, you're saying what they did was right. I mean, that's the argument that both of y'all just made. Y'all just made that argument.
Listen what I'm saying.
He was fighting for his state. What did he do wrong? Is that not what you just asked me?
I could tell you
not at all what we're saying.
I can tell you all the things are wrong in America as a black man. I could go down a whole list of what I experienced.
What point would that have to?
Hold on.
That would do with what we're talking about, though.
On a daily, I got a whole Bible of things that are wrong.
But what does that have to do with this?
What I'm saying about the point is not. I'm not saying that what they did was right. You're only applying that option because I'm not saying what they did was wrong. What I'm saying, what the fuck they did was wrong. What the fuck this country is founded on was wrong.
But what is that? But none of that has anything to do with building a memorial for this guy.
Building a memorial is what the motherfucker.
Which is the only thing we've been talking about. We've done a bunch of bad things wrong, so building a memorial to this guy makes sense now.
Hold on. The people who loved him, the people who wanted him memorialized, built that memorial. Do they not have a right to do that?
To build sure, yeah, and then do people years later have a right to say we don't want that there anymore? Yes, the exact same amount of right. The exact same amount of right.
So you cannot. That's what I'm saying. So you can't weight one heavier than the other because it was motherfuckers who loved him. They loved him, so they built a memorial to him.
But things can change.
Who didn't love him?
But there still are
popular opinion can change. Popular opinion can change.
There's still people that love him right now.
Well, apparently popular opinion isn't in his favor because they took the fucking statue down.
No,
right, because they tore the motherfucker down because
politically correct.
You don't think that's because of popular opinion? You think that's because
politically correct?
You think so? You think it's because most people wanted it there? That's what you're saying. You're saying the majority of people wanted to keep the statue, but a small percentage wanted it gone, and that's why it's gone.
Absolutely.
You think the majority of people want to keep the statue?
In the state,
based on what?
No, what I believe is that a minority of people wanted it down. Not necessarily a majority of people wanted it up, but a minority of people wanted it down.
So where are the rest of the people? What did they want?
There are people that that are voting.
Have no opinion. No. I mean, look. If you hold on, mathematically, if you only have a minority of people and not a majority of people, right? That leaves a lot of other people that you're saying. But what?
To the horse's mouth. I can tell you from the horse's mouth.
Because if it's only two minorities, there's a whole lot of people mathematically left in that equation. It can't.
Yeah, a whole bunch of people like you, they don't give a shit.
Look, let me tell you something. I grew up in the South.
So you're saying that there's two groups of people, one much smaller than the other. The larger percentage of people want it, smaller percentage of people didn't want it, and a much larger didn't give a fuck. And for some reason, the much smaller group of people got what they wanted.
Yes.
Based on what?
Because there was no vote. Let me just vote to tear this shit down.
Okay, there wasn't a vote, but that doesn't mean that the group was a minority.
People who tore the shit down.
It could mean that, but it doesn't prove the point.
There'd be no America. Period, bro.
What?
Oh, you heard that?
No, I didn't. That's why I said what.
What I'm telling you is that you talk about them tearing down the statue. Unpopular opinion. I grew up in the South, man.
Well, I'm not saying no. To be clear. There's a difference between, but that's not what I said. I mean, you can make your point, but that's not what the point I was trying to make. I was trying to fight against your argument, which said, if that's what you said, that's what people wanted when they built it. So they were allowed to build it. And I'm saying, well, if now people don't want it, why shouldn't those people have the same right to remove it as the people who built it? That's my only point.
That's okay. That's a common sense.
I'm arguing your thing that it's based on popular opinion, not mine. You're the one who said it. You said that's what people want, so they got it. I'm saying now people don't, so they don't.
You're literally stating a common sense position. At a time people wanted it built, they built it.
That's what you said, right? That's why it got built, right?
That's fine. There's no argument there.
Okay.
There's no argument there. People did want it, and they didn't want it. In addition to that, what I am saying is that it also helps the people who knew what he did, not have to answer to what he did
Uh,
years moving forward because it
I know you
doesn't
feel
exist.
that way, but I don't agree with that. I think that a
You may
very
not, you may
small,
not agree with that, but there's people who benefit. You know the phrase never waste a good what is that? Not pandemic. Never waste a good Victor, help me out. I can't get the word.
Yeah, but I don't know that one.
Is a phrase coined where it's like never waste a good not pandemic, tragedy. Never let a good tragedy go to waste or
Never
some shit.
waste a good crisis.
Crisis, yes, that.
okay,
There's
so
a lot. There's a system in place, bro.
what was the crisis? You're
These
saying,
crisis they benefit from.
what was the crisis that they took advantage of? The
I'm
rally.
using that as a metaphor.
Oh,
There
okay.
are people who benefit from, hey, let's kind of not talk about what this guy did
But yeah,
because they're tearing down his statue. Let's root him on.
who are those people? Who
Well,
benefits?
I don't fucking know the people, but there's people, they exist. You think that, bro, you think this shit, look, put it like this. If it was so easy to tear shit down, you do realize that this country, bro, will be ripped up from the roots.
Well, I think we've talked about
I
that. No,
grew
first
up
of
in
all,
the
I've never
South.
said it should be. I've never said it should be
Bro,
easy.
I'm telling you.
You're telling me what? I mean, that's
There's
not.
what
I'm not suggesting it should be
you
easy
know
to
how
remove stuff. I'm not
here's
making
an
that
example.
argument.
Here's an example, bro. You ever play video games with your kid and you let them win?
Sure.
Okay. You see how good they feel when they won?
Yeah.
If things were that easy,
Who's saying I?
let's
Who's
tear it
making that
down.
argument?
Yeah, go ahead, tear it down.
So you're saying that
there's so much
just the
shit when
simple
you
fact of
down
it
in
getting
this
teared
motherfucker.
down means it has to be easy to do. I'm not saying it should be easy. I'm not saying there should be
I
no
know
measure
you
of
get what I'm
standard.
saying, bro, but
I do hear what you're saying. I just don't agree that that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying
I didn't tell you
anybody.
saying it. I'm saying it. You don't have to be saying it. I'm saying it.
Well, you're arguing with me. You're arguing against
I'm
my
not
point.
arguing with you. I'm
Okay.
stating a point.
I agree. It shouldn't be easy to take things down. I agree with that 100%. You're right. You can't go and take down anything and everything that has any kind of negative condemnation to it. I think, I say this a lot, right? There's subtleties in things, right? Like there's levels to stuff, and I think as human beings, we have the capacity to weigh the difference between some bad things and other bad things. It doesn't have to be black or white, yes or no. There are levels to things, and I think we are bright enough and smart enough and well thought enough that we can, if we choose to, recognize that some things are worse than other things, and some things deserve certain things and other things don't. I'm saying I think there is a difference than anything that has anything negative associated with it and something that is built to the monument of that negative thing. And I think that a general who fights in the Union, right, against our country for slavery on his horse that he rode as he marched into war against the Union troops is a celebration to something negative. And I think that's different than erasing things from history books or removing anything that has anything at all negative associated. I think there's a difference between anything negative at all and a monument to the negative thing. And I feel like maybe I don't know if it's a majority or a minority. I don't know that you actually know the answer to that, or if that's just what you think. But for what it's worth, a lot of these communities that have these statues in it, they're not a majority of people who would have fought against the Union in the South. The South has a massive Black community involved in it, and I don't think those people are looking at those statues and are proud of them. Now, to Dot's point, yes, there might be lots of them who don't think we should rip down history and examples of shit that we shouldn't forget. And I'm sure that some people feel that way as well. But I guarantee you there's a huge part of those communities that are not people that are proud in any way, shape, or form of Lee and what he did. There are huge African-American Black communities in those southern states that aren't looking at that and finding any thing about it that says this is something I can be proud of. This is something that I can think he did good or that I like about what he did. They just hate that shit. So I don't know that it is just a tiny minority of people that wanted to see that go, is my point to that argument. I think there is a huge, I mean, what are the breakdowns of white people to black people in Virginia and South Carolina? Are the black people really that big, that much of a majority in those states? I don't think they are.
Black people are majority in America, bro.
I don't know that that's true, but
we built it, bro.
okay, but that doesn't
workers.
But that doesn't make you the majority. I mean, that's not. I mean, look it up. That doesn't. I mean, you can build a country and not be the majority. Maybe you're right, but that alone doesn't prove the point.
Like I always tell you, I'm not. I have a freight liner. I have a barge. I'm shipping cars. I'm not going to bring a barge from one continent to another continent with one car.
Okay. Currently, 2019 Census Bureau, non-Hispanic white, 60%, Hispanic Latino, 18.5%, Black or African, 13.4%, Asian, 5.9%. African Americans are not the majority in this country.
Feel like those Census Bureau things?
So what are you basing your numbers on then?
Because I know a lot of black people that's like, man, I ain't filling that bullshit out.
Sure.
No,
okay,
that's okay. They probably do. They're probably not completely.
I'm basing on going up back east.
I'm not arguing. Fine.
I'm basing it on.
I can concede that point. You're still not giving me numbers. You're just saying those numbers aren't accurate. Okay, where are your accurate numbers to prove that you're right?
My eyes going like I grew up in the South, man.
You've traveled enough of this country to know what percentage of the entire country is black.
Bro,
all right. What I was saying earlier is the small minority.
Because I mean, even if they're off by like 200%, that would still not be a majority, right? I mean, if you take 13.4 and multiply it by three, if it was off by 300%, that would be 39%. That still wouldn't be a majority. They'd have to be off by like 400%, the Census Bureau, in order for black people to even be poking in the 50%.
Bro, you can logically go to these places and look and see for yourself what you see. Like I can't.
You can't tell me you've been enough places that you know what the entire country's makeup is. I mean, if the census, wait, hold on. Okay, let me make the argument. The Census Bureau that spends billions of dollars counting people can't get it right, but you have. Give me a fucking break.
Adam, from 1998 to 2004.
Okay.
I've traveled to every state in America except for. Hold on, bro. Let me finish my statement.
Still wouldn't be enough.
Except for New Hampshire, Vermont.
Yeah, honestly, believe this.
Oregon, California, and
big states. So like those make up like 30% of the country, but okay.
All of the other states I've traveled through.
The entire state, every city and town.
Hold on. You name the state, I've been there, except
and every city in the state as well.
That's a big part of it.
I could drive through a state. I don't know how many black people there are in that state.
You have to observe something. In order to, in science, a part of the step is observation, right?
Yeah, total observation, not 10% of the country.
So what I'm telling you is that I've been in every state except.
Yeah, but states are big, Dot. Being in the state and seeing the entire state are not the same thing.
Oh, right. Being in the state and seeing the state
aren't the same thing. You've been to every corner and everything in between of every single state.
What I'm telling you, I can make a general assumption based off of what I have seen.
Why can't the Census Bureau do that? You're sure their number's wrong. Why are you sure?
Okay, I just told you why. And Victor laughed because he knows it's true. Like, come on, get real. Like
you're saying that the fact that some people lie on the forms is going to make them less accurate than you by yourself. That is the most ridiculous mathematical argument I've ever heard. I mean, that's insanity. That you think that all by yourself you've been able to count the racial makeup of this country.
I agree with both
Adam. I'm telling you,
arguments have valid points.
Listen to what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying, bro. Let's not make
I
mockery.
can see the
Listen to what I'm
consensus
saying.
could be wrong.
No, let's get real. You and I
Okay.
both know. You and I both know. Common sense will tell you. Common sense will tell you whether you like it or not. Look at the history books and you could piece the puzzle together. You're not gonna have these slave ships with 15 workers and 2
That
slaves.
history does not tell us that. History does not
tells
tell
you
us that
you
at
have
all.
slave ships
Saddam
back
Hussein
hundreds.
ruled
Now, I'm
over an
not talking about
entire
Saddam, bro.
country
All right,
with an army that was
no.
1/100th the size, 1/1000th the size of the country. You do not need to have the numbers to rule. History does not.
You go to Saddam Hussein. The dismissive.
You said history.
You
That's
don't understand. Listen
keep
to what
going.
I'm saying.
Okay,
Let's
keep
talk
going.
about what that is. Not
Okay.
tell me, oh well, Saddam Hussein.
Go ahead.
Fuck
Go
him.
ahead.
Ain't nobody
Go
talking
ahead.
about that dude,
You
bro.
said
I'm
history.
telling
That's an
you,
example in history.
Right. But it has no comparison, bro.
Why?
No
Okay.
comparison.
A small group of people ruling over a large group of people. I think it's
All
a
right,
pretty
guys,
good
make your
comparison.
point. Make your
But
point.
go ahead.
I'm done.
Say what you
I'm
want
done.
to say. No, I do want to hear what you want to say, but you keep
I'm listening.
suggesting my argument's ridiculous. Go ahead, say it.
Well, no,
Bro, I'm telling you something. I'm
Okay, say it.
educating you on something from a black man.
Okay, say it.
That's
Say
what
it.
I'm telling you.
Okay,
From
do it.
a black experience.
Okay.
You cannot tell me a black experience when you're
You're
not
right.
black.
True.
okay, what is it?
So
What is
I'm
it? Say
telling
it.
you shit that I know. I have
Say it.
talked to
Say it.
I have sat down and talked with children, grandchildren of actual slaves. I'm telling you shit that I know.
Okay, what are you telling us?
Firsthand
Though?
Yeah,
experience.
telling us what?
You're telling me what
that they knew.
Saddam? Fuck him. I don't know Saddam. I can only go off of what the news says. I'm telling you from being boots on the ground in the
Okay,
South.
what is it? What are you saying?
Growing up there, bro, it is so many black people that don't fill out
That there's more black people than white people. That's what you're saying, right?
What I'm telling you is that there is what you have to realize, bro, is that there are a lot of unaccounted for black people.
Okay.
Yes.
I
And go
believe
off
that.
of the census data because a lot of black people don't fill that shit out, man.
Okay.
A lot-
Even if that's, but you
A lot
don't.
of minorities don't fill
Another
those
thing
things.
that you can
don't
utilize
think
to
that
paint a clear
that's true?
picture of those facts is you look at pictures, diagrams of how they packed slave ships. They packed them one on top of the other, men, women, children. Half
Uh-huh.
of them were taken from a continent and thrown overboard for fucking fun.
Okay.
That never even made it to America. And you think that they had more workers versus slaves on these ships? No, they're gonna have more product.
No, you're
No,
you're
there was
saying.
a lot of
You're
white
saying
people
that.
here in the
When you
country.
see those
Oh
cattle
wait, we've
trucks,
been slaves.
when you
Yes,
see
I
those
do believe
horses-
that.
There was
horses,
also a lot of
look,
white
put it
people in
like
this
this, bro.
country, and there was a
When
lot
you
of
see
Irish
those
that came
horses and
over.
cattle trucks driving down I-10 or I-35, when you got one person driving a truck and you got 15 cows in that
Yeah,
motherfucker.
but every
That's how the
American.
slave ships were. You don't got 16 people driving a truck.
Yeah,
and
there
four-
wasn't
four
16
cows.
people in the
No.
United States. I agree. There were tons and tons of slaves brought over, and
And
yet,
there were tons murdered for sport, just for
sure,
fun. Because
but that would,
this is
and as
America.
horrible as that is, that would lower the
Oh,
number,
it
not
don't matter,
increase
bro.
the
I
number,
don't
if
give a
that's
fuck
what
if
we're
it's
talking
horrible
about.
or not. I don't care if it's horrible. That's not my point. I
Well,
don't care if it's horrible or not. The shit
But
is
it-
on
but
a
then being
demonstrable
murdered
level
doesn't-
of being horrible, but that's not my point. Don't
Then why-
associate that to my point.
You brought it up.
What
Not me. Go
happened,
ahead.
happened. Like you say, bad shit happens. Bad stuff happens.
Right.
Yeah, but that would decrease the number.
Yeah, it would decrease the number. People
It
getting
would
killed.
definitely
would
decrease
not
the
increase it.
number.
Okay.
It would definitely decrease the number. But bro, common sense will tell you that these people ain't finna sit here and have a whole slave ship with 10 slaves and 30 workers. No.
No,
They're
you're right.
going
You're
to have
right.
30
You're
workers
right.
armed
No,
with
you're right.
guns and
Dot.
200 fucking slaves. So
Dot.
that means these people came over here in bulk. I told
Yeah.
you we the Walmart, Costco of the slave
Yes,
shit.
there
bro.
were more slaves on the ship than there were
Of
people.
course. And so think about how many
But-
ships went over
But
the
they didn't
Walmart.
come over together. It wasn't like there was nobody here and then like 3 white people and a ship of slaves came. There were already
I didn't say
tons
they
of
were,
people.
but what I'm telling
Okay,
you,
but
man,
so
what I'm
then-
telling you, bro, is
that
that
explains.
we Walmarted this shit. We stocked up on toilet paper, like how motherfuckers
Yes,
stocked up
that's
on toilet
true.
paper. America stocked up on slaves, bro.
Yes.
Yes.
And yet, I mean, other
So how
than
you tell
you
me
just
that
saying it,
there's only a small percentage of black people? Well, who the fuck another percentage is? UFOs, aliens?
well, why
Cows?
do you know? Why do you know then? I mean, why is it that nobody
Well,
else can
common
count, but
sense
you
will tell
can?
you. You could even look at the data.
I
and
don't.
know- I know
I don't
people-
believe that common sense does say that. That my common sense does not say
Well, what I'm telling you, man, what I'm telling
that
you
there
is
were
that-
more slaves than there were white people.
All right.
And
But you get my point. You get my point.
I do get your
Yeah,
point. I just
yeah,
I don't know.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The numbers are wrong. You're absolutely right. Most minorities do not fill out the census stuff.
I wouldn't say most, but some certainly don't.
Okay, let's say some, but I would honestly, it's pretty, to me, I would think it's almost 50-50, but it has a very big, very large number that don't probably fill it
Yeah,
out.
but they don't
And
not count people who don't, by the way, fill out the paperwork. They get all the paperwork, and then they also make mathematical equations to adjust for the fact that they know not everybody fills it out. Now, am I saying that it's 100% accurate? Of course it's not. There's no way anybody,
Mathematically
let alone
equating-
one person, could possibly be able to calculate the exact percentages of races. I mean, that's crazy. Of course,
So
nobody.
therefore, there's no way to even put those. There's no way to even put those out. You can't put that data out because it's going to be incorrect.
Right, within a margin of error is what you get with
Huge margin
any,
of error. So how do you even equate that? If you
because
wanna
the margin of error that you're talking about would mean that it'd have to be off by 500%, and I don't believe it is, and I don't think anybody whose brain is structured in math would think it is either. Is my point.
So if it's structural, bro, you have to realize, man.
Right,
common
next-
sense
next
is-
As
subject,
opposed to just a feeling about what I think it is. But if you
y'all
base
actually
it,
agree.
yeah, this is probably true. We're not going to change each other's mind. But I
I
mean,
don't want to change your mind. I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm just trying to give you a
okay,
little
well
bit.
then we can keep debating it. I'm
I'm
saying,
trying to enhance on it.
I appreciate completely your experience, right? But I think we've gotten in trouble a lot throughout history, assuming that one person's experience represents everything. Like, you've had your experience, you've gone out and seen what you've seen, but there's lots of stuff that you haven't seen.
So if that's the case, Adam,
Yeah.
if what you're saying, add that to the point that you're making.
The
There's a
point,
majority
the
of
point
minority
that,
people who
the
wanted
point that
statute
one
down,
person's,
and they're-
okay, I'm going to do that. You asked me to do it. I'm going to do it. And my point is that what one person has been able to witness with their own eyes, right? Even if you had did nothing but been in your car for the last 10 years, driving from place to place to place to place, could not possibly mathematically, with the size of this country, be able to anywhere close to the accuracy of a government who gets
that's common sense.
hundreds of thousands of people to go out and spend millions of dollars to try to get an accurate number.
Okay, I will tear out the horse's mouth. Of course not.
Okay.
Right. But
All
I
right.
can take that. I can add my knowledge of what I know of history.
And make an informed decision based on the amount of information you do have. Yes, you can do that.
Right.
But logic doesn't always dictate facts.
The same process that the census uses with their little papers that they get sent back in, and the people that come and knock on your door.
Right. But the difference is they do have like
so
eons of more information than you do.
collective information. I can clearly tell you, bro, that it's a lot.
Except that they've collected 1,000,000 times more information than you have.
Demographic to a lot of shit.
But they have so much more information than you do to make that prediction.
Bro, come on now, bro. Use common sense.
I am. I am using common sense. 1,000,000 data points of information is much more accurate than one. That's just a mathematical.
I could address the elephant in the room, bro, but we all know what it is.
Okay.
This is a racist fucking country that built itself on slave labor.
So it's not that, okay.
And not only that, hold on, not only that, the educational system is weighted.
So you're saying that the Census Bureau is lying? I'm just clearing up the argument. So it's not that they don't have enough information. They're just lying because they would like us to believe there's more.
Don't lie to yourself. There's no need to clear the argument. Don't lie to yourself.
There is, because you haven't actually made the argument. You've made some accusations, but you haven't said what it is you're trying to say
I'm not
based on
arguing.
those accusations.
I'm not arguing. That's the point. I'm not arguing.
Your
It's not
statement,
an
your
accusation.
statement hasn't had a
It's
point yet.
my statement. This is my statement.
Okay.
We know what country we live in.
Yeah.
We can pull data.
Mhm.
We can pull information and paint a picture. Numbers can paint pictures, but you also need extra information outside of one channel of numbers.
That's what you're offering, one channel of numbers and saying that's sufficient.
No, I'm not. You're taking
saying
that.
you.
As I state something, you jump in and take on that point. What I'm telling you is that from talking to people, from my observation, from research, there's multiple things that I've looked into, bro. You can do the same, and you will come to the same, bro. You can do the same and come to the same conclusion. But what you're doing is you're taking that one, the census says, and that's what you're literally.
No, that's not true. That's what I used right now. But if
no, what's the word? You're saying that
so, you get to bring all the information.
Let me finish. You're saying I'm using one point, one thing.
I'm not
on that when I'm telling you I'm not. But
you're doing what
the same thing with the census.
You're doing what you're accusing me of doing to me. You're saying
make a point, but you're using how the census come up with their number. It's no different than what you're saying I'm doing. I'm telling you how I come up.
Not true. That's not.
You have no numbers. You have absolutely no
Yeah,
numbers. You're just making your statement.
Right.
You're only making a statement. You have no numbers to back it up.
You're not using any numbers to back it up. I could say what you said, which is that based on my life experience, I don't think there's more black people. Based on all my life experience,
I don't have numbers to back this up. I don't have numbers to back this up. But because the census has numbers to back it up, we can literally show you that those numbers are wrong.
Yes.
You know that.
Numbers being wrong, but not that far off.
But not that far off is what we're saying.
The numbers for the census are close. They're not dead on.
Right. That's what we're saying.
They can have errors. It's just not that.
So I'll say this: you can believe they're close. That's fine.
And I'll add that isn't just based on looking up one thing on the internet, but just like you, I have a whole life experience of things I've seen and experienced in places I've been. And my whole life experience doesn't say that the majority of the country is black. I would also argue that if the majority of the country was black, I mean, why are there minority issues that have been up until now often blamed on the fact that they're minorities and thus don't have the same numbers to affect
that goes right back into the original conversation. The use of the word minority.
What original conversation? We haven't brought up minority in this conversation. Okay. I thought you meant this conversation. Sorry.
I'm answering a statement. I'm answering a question. That word minority and majority is a label created to separate and identify something that is not a factor. It's a mindset. You're minor. You're not a part of a major mindset.
Okay.
And that was applied to everything outside of white. It's considered a minority.
It could also be argued that people put.
All right. I'm educating you on something.
And I'm listening. I've been letting you talk. It's not like I'm not letting you talk.
Minority issues, it's grouped into Black, Hispanic, predominantly Black first.
Right. It could also be based on those groups being a smaller amount of numbers, which is also what the word minority means, right?
No, bro, yes.
Not what it means.
The word minority means a minor, means a lesser collection of people.
Right. And since
in the context that we utilize minority as far as quantity goes, it's completely off. It's used in the context to address and identify people of color. And that's been the problem. The tactic is successful, bro.
Well, I think also part of the problem is that
you're oblivious to it because
I'm not oblivious to it. I just don't agree with you. Those aren't the same things.
But a great population of the country and society is oblivious to it, that they automatically group themselves in the minority because the term was used to coin a minor sense of mind, a lesser than, a beneath, a subservient mind,
Yeah,
a minor.
I think there's truth to that as well. But
As well. So you see how you put the emphasis on as well?
because it's the point that it's because it's. Oh my God! It's because it's what we're talking about right now.
Adam, you have to realize something, bro. What I'm talking to you about.
There's stuff I'm supposed to just shut up and listen because I'm white. I get it. Go ahead.
Stuff you're supposed to shut up and just listen to. What
Or
I'm
agree
talking
with.
about or agree with. So you gotta slow down, buddy.
All right.
What I'm talking to you about are things that you can apply to your knowledge and add to.
Yeah, so am I though. So am I.
But to help you, but you have to realize the way you know you say you go into the military, before you join the military, and then after you come out of it, you're two different people, right?
That's true, but the same goes.
So what I
have a whole life experience that you don't have as well.
Example to make a point to you that when you generationally, you generation wise, you're taught things differently than Black people are taught things, than Spanish people are taught things. Everybody, we call it culture, right? We call it how our races differ, right? And even that word is, right? What I'm explaining to you is that when you utilize those terms, your response to them is going to be based off of how you came into this. So when you emphasize, when I tell you, I say, when I tell you, like I said last week, I say a lot, like you can say, a lot of people like me that look like me have a certain mindset based off of your observation. What I can tell you is that a lot of people that may look like you have a certain mindset. And one of those things that hinder the communication is the fact that you may be oblivious to your level of belittling.
What I'm belittling you because I don't agree with the mathematical numbers.
Dismissiveness. I'm sorry, wrong word. Remember we talked about dismissiveness.
But there's a difference between dismissing somebody and not agreeing with somebody, Dot. I'm not dismissing your knowledge. I just don't agree with the.
I'm going into detail on word structure emphasis. Like when you said as well, yes, that's right. But how
that's because you have kind of taken this into.
It acknowledges the statement. It acknowledges the statement, but it doesn't grant it the merit or value.
Because it's not what we're talking about right now. We were arguing about your idea that the majority of people in this country are Black, and I was making a very minor statement about minorities having issues because they are a smaller group of people. And I'm sorry I used the word minority. What my suggestion was.
Sorry, it's an easy word.
But you're suggesting that I'm using the word to minimize a group of people when, in fact, at least the reason
do that. Not you. I say society tends to do that.
I agree. No, I don't disagree with that. I think there are a lot of people in society that use lots of words in ways differently than what that's absolutely true. I think that there are definitely people that use minority as a negative condemnation instead of it being about just numbers, which is kind of the way my brain works. So when I hear minority, what I think is a smaller amount of, not a lesser than. But you're absolutely right. I'm no doubt in my mind that there are people who, when they hear minority, use it as a term of less than instead of numbers. My point that I was just trying to make was that I thought it was kind of pretty understood knowledge that the reason why lots of groups have as many issues as they have is because they have less people to go out and represent them. I mean, if the majority of the population was Black, every issue that they wanted should be addressed in almost every election. I mean, they would be able to go out and vote and
market in elections, bro. Come on. They are the target market in elections.
But their numbers aren't represented that way. They don't. They're not the majority of voters in elections,
bro.
They're targeted because not as many could. they're targeted because there's a much larger group that could be voting that isn't. And so there are campaigns that have gotten smart and saw what can we do to get this group that is not coming out and voting to go out and vote. That's what all campaigns try to do.
Pandering, bro. They put on diabetes and shit. Looking stupid. We call it pandering, but majority of there's a lot of people who fall for it, you know, that are miseducated on things, bro.
Right. And then, but there's also candidates that just go out and actually get stuff done for groups of people that they want to vote for them. And I don't, how you do it is one thing, but
how to vote, they're told who to vote for.
Yeah,
There's
Bill
a difference.
Bill Clinton on
Why
the second
why you can drive down Days of Vala.
everybody's told who to vote for. That's not a unique experience. Everybody is told who they're supposed to vote for based on what group they fit into.
They're told who to vote for. They're targeted and told who to vote for, not how
Everybody
to vote
is.
and why to vote. Hold on, and why
Everybody is. Nobody's told why to vote. It all. I mean, come on. Think.
So the understanding of people voting for presidents and things like that that are elected by the college, voting for your local representative and councilmen, those local votes. Do you know that there's places where people still use CDs in cars, man? In Georgia,
I don't. What are we talking about?
There's places where things are not. That this information is not taught and told to because they rely on.
It's not. I mean, that's one of the biggest problems we have in this country. It's not taught or talked to anybody. Who's getting that information, and where? I'm not. Bro,
we live in a life and in a place and in a location where I promise you is way different than somebody living on South Side Memphis or wherever. You know what I'm saying? Like it's way like the privilege of what we go through here and take the assumption out across the board in San Antonio and the suburbs and communities out here, bro, is pales in comparison to
yes, it is. Yes, it does.
I've been in these places. I've been in these hoods.
So have I.
Communities, bro, where it's like
if you a lot of those places as well.
Get killed.
Yes,
I've been in these places. They're not worried about no motherfucking voters and or this or that, or they're not worried about this stuff. They're like, they don't pay my, like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's a real world, bro, that if you don't, I'll give you a simple analogy. We can't breathe underwater, but Jacques Cousteau and his people, they got machines that can get down to the bottom of the ocean, right? We can't do it unless we have the finances and the backing. Well, what my skin color does is it gives me the finances and the backing to go inside these real places in these real hoods and talk to these real people.
You might need look, I'm sorry, but
I just use an analogy to try to help you understand.
I don't understand. Disagreeing with you and not understanding things aren't the same thing. And I'm kind of getting a little annoyed with the idea that anytime I don't agree with you, it's because there's some real world I don't understand. I've been out in the real world too. I've traveled a lot too. I've been to a lot of places.
Adam, I know you have. So what I'm telling you, bro, is step up on that then.
I am. I just don't agree with there are lots of things that we agree upon, okay? But the idea that people need a lot of money or power or things to go out and vote, or that if you have a tough life, you can't go to a poll and vote on one day. I mean, are there some people?
Bro, come on now. You know what's going on out here, bro.
Yes, I do. And the idea.
All right.
And the idea that I keep getting interrupted to be told how ignorant and stupid I am before I get to make a point is getting kind of frustrating. Well, you keep saying that it's just that I don't know, and that I'm being dismissive, or it's because I don't understand.
I say you may have the trait, but a good portion of people that don't look like me tend to encounter people that look like you that are dismissive to the fields and mindset, and they don't know it.
I'm sure.
Know it. So I'm not blaming. There's no blame. It's like it's identifying something.
Yes, I believe that is true. I agree with that. But that okay. And that's a good point and a fair point and one that's worth making. But I don't think that it would overpower the idea that a group of people that were a majority in one country having the ability to get so much shit done if they had those numbers. I mean, I've always felt like it's been kind of apparent that the reason why we have these issues that lean towards white people getting more and black people being treated more shittily is because for a long time, and luckily, I think, even though I am part of
Long
that
time
group
what?
that
For a long
benefits
time
from
what? For a long time what? What was your
ha-
statement?
been able to pass laws, get shit done that benefits them, fucking tilt the fucking bar massively in their fucking favor while shitting on everybody else. It's because they have had the numbers to go out and make that shit happen. I mean, I thought that was
Oh,
kind of
it
what
is
everybody understood it
Wait,
to
wait, wait.
be the
So
truth.
yes,
No, because
yes,
what it
that's
was
kind
is
of
that
true,
they
but it's
weren't
also
allowed
that
to.
like the people that people of color that are non-whites, they are disenchanted and don't go to the polls.
Sure.
So
True.
there's a
That's
hidden
true as
amount.
well.
I mean, that's
Yes.
why
Which is
that's
what
why
he
they
was
try to
saying,
get
and
them.
I 100% agree on it. But do you agree that they're so disenchanted that if they made up 60 or 70% of the population, there still wouldn't be shit getting done? There's that much disenfranchising that even with 60% of the population, so many people are not going to go out and vote that they can't get anything done. Come on, that 60,
So
like,
there may because things may
You
not
know that
be
18% of the population actually votes.
yeah, and yes, I do know that. And
So
have you
yes,
looked at
you could have
look at the
60% of the
breakdown?
population. You could
Huh?
have 60% of the population disenchanted, and they still would not be a majority when it comes to voting. If
It
only
doesn't nor I mean,
if
throughout
only
history, that's not
18%
normally
vote,
been the case. That's extremely unlike. I mean, that's not typically what happens in an actual free election, not one where like the military's like coming by and stealing boxes and shit, but people actually get to freely vote based
if
on what
if
they want.
if
Uh,
if you know that only 18% of the population votes, how can you, that's less than 20%
because
of
if
the
you look
country
at the
vote.
breakdowns of that 18%, it's not that of
It sways white.
yeah, because white people make up 60% of the country.
No,
That's my
because white
fucking
people
point.
vote. Because white people vote.
Look at the breakdown of the numbers. If you so 18% of the country is black. What percentage of the 18% of people that vote are black? If it's 5%, then I succeed. I you're right. If it's not, then the disenfranchising argument wouldn't make a lot of sense. It would just mean that a large percentage of everybody doesn't vote.
Now I gotta look it up. Hold up.
All right.
Well, keep going. I'll figure it out.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of where we're at right now.
12%.
12%. That's. I mean, okay. So white people make up 60%. What percentage of what percentage of the vote is white? I mean, that's not eight. It's what was the number for? Black people are 13.4% of the population. They're 12% of the vote. Does that? I mean, that seems like a pretty fair breakdown. Like the same percentage of, I mean, it's the same percentage of voters as it is percentage of citizens. That's not showing a massive disenfranchising. That's showing a pretty equal percentage. Right? I mean, it's off by, you said 12%, 1.4%. That's within the margins.
So out of the percentage of population, what and the percentage of voters, what's
They're the
that?
same. They're the same.
So
Right.
what that means is that 100% of black people that's in the population are the 100% of people that vote.
No, it's saying that of the percentage of people, right, only 18% of the country votes at all. If you take that 18%, right, and make it a whole number, what percentage of that total amount of people are voting are black? And it's 12%, which is roughly the same percentage of black people in the country, which means that if white people are about 60%.
Hold on. You say 16% of the country
Oh,
votes.
crap.
Right?
Nope.
18?
I'm sorry. That was the wrong one.
Okay.
18?
That's eligible voters. is 12.5%. In last year's election, or was it last year, whatever the hell it was, 60% of that number voted. So
60%.
about 8.
Okay. All right. Now look up the other categories.
Fudge.
See if it follows a trend.
Okay. It looks like, I think white voters were about 60, I'm gonna say 65% of eligible white voters. Now I gotta see how many eligible white voters are.
I'm not even sure we're doing that, Matt. So they're saying 12% of the black population is eligible to vote.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, no, 12% of the US population, which is kind of what you were talking about earlier, the
Is
population.
black, and half
is
of them
black.
vote.
Well, eligible, obviously, because it's not counting kids.
Right. So 50% of African Americans vote. Black people vote. That's pretty high percentage when you consider only 18% of the country votes. I mean,
This may take longer.
it doesn't say, I mean, half of eligible voters, if only 18% is, it seems like that would be more than 12% of the vote, but maybe I'm wrong. Which would mean that they're voting higher than the percentage that they make up in the country, which means they're even kind of making up for the fact that they have a minority vote by having a lot of black people vote, which would kind of be the opposite of what we've been saying.
Okay, it looks like 67% of the electorate is white. Black is 13, Hispanic is 13, Asian is 4, and other is 3.
So it actually kind of follows the demographics exactly. So not making any ground, but that's the point I was trying to make, is if, you know, it looks like black people are voting, you know, their vote is hitting the percentage that they represent in the country, at least according to these numbers, which we don't need to get, not everybody agrees on the census numbers to begin with, and that's fine. But if, you know, I guess technically the polling numbers wouldn't have to be accurate either. If you're assuming that they're accurate, then, you know, of
Hispanics
all the
apparently
people,
don't vote.
of all the people, but yeah, because Hispanic makes up a lot more than, well, I mean, it's
No,
not.
they don't.
No,
They
I
don't
mean,
vote very well.
no, I mean,
65% of all white people vote. 60% of black people vote. 49% of Hispanics vote. 48% of Hispanics vote.
the
49%
percentage,
of Asians vote.
according to those numbers, the same percentage of black people vote as the percentage of white people. So they don't.
60, 65.
Oh, no, okay, no, I'm sorry, you're right. That's not exactly the same. That's, but it's not that far off. It doesn't seem like a ton of disenfranchising, keeping people from going. I mean, if that's the case, if the reason that only 60% of African Americans are going, then why are only 65% of white people going? And to be fair, there is disenfranchising going on. There's no doubt about that. They're right now, more than ever, they're trying to create tons of laws to make it harder for groups that are not white people to vote, whatever you want to call that. Okay. And it's disgusting what they're doing to try to, and they're doing it because these numbers are changing faster and faster every year. And it's not going to be long before they're
What's also
not
crazy is like the growth. Like how much more, I guess, each year the growth of the voting population. Hispanic is 39%, Black is 17%, Asian is 14%, white is 24%. So while Hispanics don't vote, they are starting to vote.
Yes. Well, and that's what I'm saying is there. I mean, first of all, those numbers are not that far off, and they're only far off if you're looking at the next closest group and not all the groups and one group, right? So if you're only looking at one community that could outvote one other community, it's not there yet. But those numbers change every year. And I mean, I've watched plenty of shit and read lots of shit and heard lots of shit where everybody's admitted that the reason why they're going and trying to get all these, like why they're focusing more than ever, not that they haven't before, right? But especially in recent history, that they're trying to subvert the vote so significantly is because they're recognizing that their ability to control it is disappearing because so are their numbers. And
Right.
as the numbers disappear, they're not going to have the ability to just push shit around and do and get what they want done. And I don't know what got us to this point to begin with, but the point I was trying to make is it might not be the only reason, but to suggest that one group having had the majority of the numbers for such a long period of time didn't have a large part to do with their ability to run the game seems crazy to me. I mean, if in most situations, if you've got numbers and people that are willing to vote together on things, you're gonna have a huge advantage, right?
Sure.
That's all I was trying to say. Is going back to the numbers thing. I mean, that's why
Here's one
my
thing.
experience has always said that was a legitimate idea. Was that the way the country
Here's
was?
the thing that I was going to say that gets us back towards the actual statutes or statues. Is
Yeah.
that when I was saying that there was a minority of people that wanted it down was because there was not an actual vote taken. The vote that was taken was city council. So it was 5-minute members
That made the decision.
that made the decision. There was
Yeah.
no vote to Charlottesville. If
Right.
they had voted, if they had brought it up in Charlottesville and everyone in Charlottesville voted,
Right.
or
And,
whoever
and the
voted
majority in
vote,
that case wanted it gone, that'd be a different story.
exactly.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Again, I mean, look, I know I've been arguing passionately about it. I don't really give a shit about the statue. I mean, I really don't. It doesn't affect me, and I do think there's something to the idea that we all, not anybody in particular, have to have tough enough skin that if we see something that we don't like, it's not going to destroy who we are, right? I mean, that's part of living in a society, is that you're going to see and hear shit you don't like. I mean, our right to freedom of speech, protects the right for racist people to go out in public and say whatever racist shit they want to say. Like, that's one of the downsides that comes with freedom of speech and expression that I think is a very important freedom.
That's what I've always been behind, is that you have to defend the parable to
Yes, I agree with that.
protect the good,
Yeah, I do agree with that part of the argument. And I do agree with the part of the argument that Dot passionately made, which is that we can't run away from the horrible shit that we did. But I do see a distinction between erasing the history books and not wanting to see a celebration to something that I think a lot of people in this country think of as a very hurtful, horrible thing that they don't want to have a reminder of every time they walk through downtown. That part of it is all I'm saying. Do I think that statue has to be that? No, I think you can pass by it and recognize it for what it is, which is what you guys have been talking about. I think that's a possibility. I think that's something I'm capable of doing when I walk by it. I don't, do anything you want for Lee. If I walk by it, I'm not going to celebrate it. I'm not going to see it as a celebration. I have the ability to do that. Huh?
I'll read the plaque.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's the thing. I could go and I'm not saying I would even just ignore it. I'm saying I would look at it and see it with all of the knowledge and information I have about what it means and who it was and the time period that it happened in. And I feel like I have the ability to put that into a proper perspective, right? I think most people do, but I also recognize some people don't want to have to. I don't completely disagree with them feeling that way. It's with something that's this powerful of a meaning to it. You know what I mean? Not everything does. Not everything has that powerful of a meaning to it. You know what I mean? Some things stick out. The N word, right? I mean, technically it's just a word. I'm never going to say it because I know for a lot of people, not everybody, but for a lot of people, there's no way I can say that word without it having a horrible negative connotation. Like they're not going to take it well. It's not going to make them feel good no matter how I mean it when I say it, right? I recognize that. And so I choose not to use that word. I know there's white people out there that think it's crazy that they're not allowed to say that word. I mean, it's one fucking word. You know what I mean? I don't need to be able to say one fucking word to live my life. If it's going to hurt people when I say it, I don't want to say it. You know what I mean? Does that mean I don't have the right to say it? No, of course I have the right to say it, and everybody does. But I think people shouldn't have to be subjected to hearing that if it has that hurtful of a feeling when they hear it. And so I can
made a choice. It's a personal choice.
Yes, I can recognize people not wanting to see that as well, I guess is what I'm saying. I think it's different. I think it's different than, me saying the N-word isn't us not forgetting history. It's me being ignorant to the pain that word causes. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's some correlation to that in this statue. Like for a lot of people, it seems like that statue isn't a symbol of history. It's a painful reminder of it. You know what I mean? I can recognize not wanting to have to be forced to be reminded of it constantly, in time, in the center of everything.
I hear that. I hear that. But again, this country, if there's a group of people that want to do something that is not effectively, and that's kind of what this whole crap thing is about, is that most of the time, exactly what you're saying is that in this country, group of people are allowed to do what they want to do as long as they don't hurt other people. But now we're delving into, well, you hurt my feelings.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
No, you make a good point, but let me point this out. This statue wasn't like in some guy's front yard, right? I mean, that's a big difference too, because while we do 100% protect the right for you to put a statue in your backyard if you want to, or on your piece of property or in the middle of your store, where was the statue? Was it on a public park? Was it in front of a federal building? Because that's a little different.
I want to say it was in front of City Hall. And
yeah.
It may have been at a traffic area, or it may have just been straight up in front of the City Hall.
Right, because isn't it a little bit different when you're saying, look, this person doesn't have the right to do what he wants to celebrate his history and so forth, and I don't want my state government or my county government to be putting this up for people to come by, or to leave up for people to come by and look at. I mean,
I'm probably gonna hurt my own argument with this, but it was probably, I mean, it had to have been approved by the city. The city put it up at the time when it was put up. You know, so I mean, I don't know if it was voted on. I can't tell you that, but I do know the city as a group put it up and was happy to put it up at the time. I know times have changed,
right?
But it should, like a lot of things, should be left up to the people. And I can't tell South Carolina, I can't tell Virginia what they should and shouldn't do. People in Texas can't tell another state what they should and shouldn't do, or a city in a state what they should and shouldn't do.
Well, but you can. I mean, we are a country now, right? We're not independent states. There are some laws and regulations that we have that are something that the government.
Federal laws. There are federal laws, but even when they were making the country, that was the big debate, was that they wanted the states to have sovereignty over their own land. They did apply to the union, they worked together in the union, but they were supposed to have their own sovereign rights, and that's what
to me it feels a little bit like prayer in school, right? Like a big part of me says I'm not very religious, But if somebody is, why am I gonna impose on their right to do what they want to do? But the argument for it is because, for instance, there are certain religions that are what the majority of people in this country follow, right? So depending on where you are, you're sending a kid to a school that he has no right to choose not to go to, right? He's legally required. He can get in trouble. His parents can get in trouble if he doesn't show up. And then he's forced to go to a place where he can be made fun of and ostracized because he doesn't follow the same religion as the majority of the people in that school does, right? And we're forcing him to put up with that. He has no choice in this situation. I mean, there's some situations where it's not a matter of letting one person enjoy the freedoms, but we're forcing some people's feelings on other people's that don't have a lot of choice in whether that's being forced upon them or not. And that's often been kind of a line in the sand where we say, look, you are allowed to do whatever you want, but we can't force people to go play. We can't send people places we're forcing them to go, and then on top of that force them to be have other people's shit put on top.
Well, that's not entirely true, but nobody's forcing people to like go to these statues in reverence. It's there for the people that do have it.
Depending on where it is
Yeah,
what I'm saying.
that's what I'm
I mean,
saying.
if it's
Kind of confusing. Sometimes you have to go to City Hall, and
right,
you're gonna have to pass by it, but you're not getting required to like bow down to it and then go into City Hall.
but I'm just saying, like, if it's, I mean, look, you drive, like Dot say, you drive across the country, there's shit everywhere, right? Like you're driving, all of a sudden there's a little fucking sign on the side of the road, you pull off, it's where Davy Crockett took a piss or some shit, you know what I mean? Like that stuff,
Hey,
to me,
that's the Alamo right there.
I'm not knocking Davy Crockett. But that stuff's not forced upon you. You know what I mean? You can keep driving, like the center of the city, like to suggest, hey, you don't have to come to the center of our city if you don't want to. You know what I mean? That seems awfully discriminative. Like either appreciate this shit that we appreciate or just stay the fuck away from downtown. You know what I mean?
No one's even requiring you to appreciate it. Everyone just like, leave it alone.
Yeah. I'm just saying there's I don't know. Again, it doesn't bother me. Even the ones that are people that I don't like, and it's funny. Like the arguments that we've made today, like I'm not far off from a lot of the stuff that you guys are saying, but I think there's some small differences that make a big difference. You know what I mean? But like,
you kind of like the demographic of this show and the arguments that have been being made. Because it's like the exact opposite.
I know.
Demographics that are
Absolutely. I should be arguing for the statue. No, I'm just. I mean, no. Well, I like that. I mean,
That's what I'm saying. I do. I appreciate it. I like it also.
We've said that before. The idea that the fact that somebody's black or white or male or female or gay or straight means they're going to have one opinion is ridiculous.
Absolutely.
I mean, I wholeheartedly believe in the idea that we are getting too sensitive to the idea that like I deserve to always be in a safe bubble all the time and nobody has the right to pop that. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
Get over yourself. That's not how life works. And part of me feels the way about this. Like it's a goddamn statue. Don't stop at the statue if you don't want to stop at it. I do.
Exactly right.
Big part of me feels that way. But I like I've
my deal is where does it end? If we start doing this, where does it end? It's absolutely true. Two of the presidents on Mount Rushmore owned slaves. Are we going to take their faces off now and replace them with somebody else?
I mean, I like to think that's what I'm saying. I mean, maybe not. And if so, then your argument is valid. But I mean, I'd like to think that although we often choose not to be, right, we are people that have a finite ability to to understand levels of shit. I mean, you know what I mean? We're not monkeys or dogs. Like we can recognize that one thing might have a lot of things in common with something else, but not everything. You know what I mean? Like
You also understand that Jefferson's plantation is a national monument right now.
that.
Like his home is a national monument right now,
Yeah.
and it was
Yeah.
a slave plantation.
Like
That's not really true. It had slaves. It had quite a few slaves. It's not like they were picking cotton
it's not
in
a
a field,
plantation.
but
Yeah.
he did have slaves, and they, he ran his household that way.
I mean, I guess, and maybe this is just me and not what other people are saying. And if so, then it's not, true to the argument of why they took it down. But like, I don't think plantations should be torn down because to Dot's argument, like we shouldn't be erasing the evidence of these horrors. We should continue to remember that shit happened forever. And I mean, I'd like to think we would move way past where we are now, but no matter what level we get to, it's gonna be built on the building blocks of that history to where we are now. And you can't take those blocks out and expect to continue to be where you are. So
We have to remember that we did terrible, terrible things to Black people. We have to remember we did terrible, terrible things to Native Americans.
Yes.
I mean, they have to stick around, or else we'll
Agreed.
do something as arrogant and as destructive again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And anybody who thinks otherwise, I do not want to get into an argument about people like politicians themselves, but nobody can say that over. That's a good question. Give me just a second. Sorry, a question just popped up on the board. I appreciate it, Jack. Give me just a second. Fuck, what was I saying?
I was
Look,
saying
I
we
just
had to remember atrocities.
we do. We absolutely do. I think I would like to think that there can be a difference between a celebration of something and a remembrance of something, right? Oh, that's what I was saying. I mean, we went through a period of time where we saw intolerance for things grow at a ridiculous rate that I think we hadn't seen in a long time, which, so the idea that this stuff can't come back, I mean, I think we know that it can. We've seen that it can. It has to be a constant fight to keep that in the rearview mirror and keep it from happening again. And you're absolutely right. If we forget about these things that have happened, we will, it'll happen again. That's absolutely true. We shouldn't be erasing it from history under any circumstances. I would like to think there could be a difference between erasing things from history and celebrating them, right? And it, are people seeing something as a celebration as opposed to a history marker? So Jack, thanks for writing in, man. It says absolutely we should learn from the evils so we never repeat it. I'm sorry, I thought he was asking how can we do that. He was just making a statement. So yes, we agree with you.
Thank you, Jack, for your comment.
Yeah, for your participation, and I agree with you, man. We can't continue to learn from them if we pretend that they didn't happen. That's not a good thing. Not to mention, I mean, 100% fair point, but how unfair is it to people who are descendants of the people who've gone through this horrible shit to just pretend like it never fucking happened? I mean, that's disrespectful as fuck. Like, we shouldn't do that either. You know what I mean? Like, this is shit that happened. We need to acknowledge that it happened because we don't want to repeat it, and because to pretend that it didn't happen is a fucking slap in the face. I mean,
like the plantations in the South. I don't think a lot of people go to the plantations in the South to go, "Whoa, look, we used to keep slaves." I think a lot of people go to see shit. This horrific crap happened, and look at how terrible this crap that was going on. Look at where these people live.
With those plantations in the South, they're just there.
Yeah,
a lot of them that are just there. It's not that they have them where people are not trying to preserve. Like they're going to say, "Oh, look what happened bad." They just exist.
Well, they're plantations that people like have weddings and like parties and shit at, which kind of is a little disgusting. The other
what they call the colonial style,
right,
aka the colonizer style home,
right.
colony.
Jack is also saying that if we just start tearing down evil things that happen, and I don't, you might have missed some of the beginning. We've been on for a long time. We appreciate you logging in for any time at all. I agree with you. Argument that I've been trying to make is there a difference between shit where bad stuff has happened, like you say? Because his comment is, if we get rid of things where evil things have happened, then the pyramids, the Roman Colosseums, lots of stuff we'd have to start taking down, right?
Coliseum's a good point. There was some
Yeah,
terrible atrocities that
horrible
happened there.
shit that happened there. Hell yeah. Pyramids too. I mean, it was literally built on the backs of slaves, thousands of whom died building it. Absolutely.
Actually, the pyramids were built by the aliens.
Oh, or that, or
Except
that.
the pyramids that were built by the aliens.
You know, I've been trying to make a very complicated argument that it's not necessarily a black or white thing or a yes or no thing. I think there's a difference to things, monuments built to celebrate somebody who did something horrible, as opposed to just things that have horrible things associated with them. Because Dot was saying that too. I mean, if you start taking down, he was saying in this country, but I'm willing to bet in most places, if you start going around looking at things that are more than like 10 or 15 years old, or maybe 30, 40 years old, there's going to be some horrible shit associated with it.
All the Mayan temples, they were used for sacrifices.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I think I think what I'm suggesting is the idea that we're not, you know, erasing history so that we can pretend it didn't happen and just sing kumbaya and be happy. But is there a difference between things where bad shit is associated with it and things that are built to the celebration of something bad that happened? Because at the time it was built, we didn't necessarily consider it as bad as we consider it now.
And right, and like like I said, for a long time, the sentiment of slavery towards black people was like, "Oh my God, get over it. You weren't a slave."
Right.
That's literally the sentiment towards black people when we would bring up slavery, you know, which is a harsh disrespect to our ancestors, you know. But then they put in your face 9/11, never forget.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and it's cliche, but
Well,
still, in the
it's
same
pretty- I
factor,
mean-
it's like you have to look at something that you have a people that it's in a country that have no history except for the history that they were given. That's why they say
it's atrocities. You took
it's
away
almost
their complete any
yeah,
connection
were.
they had to their homeland, any connection they had to their family, their history.
That's why you have the phrase African American. Africa's a continent, not a country. South Africa is a country. Africa's a continent, so not every black person is African.
Right.
Well,
Well, not even.
if you look at the stuff they're doing out right now,
Not every black person's even from that continent.
You know the stuff that they're doing right now, the family trees and all that crap, where you can research your family history, this and that. Black people can only go back, if they're lucky, to the manifest that they came over, and that's
Sure.
it. You know, where other people are going to like Scotland and finding their family roots in Scotland and their family roots that someone was related to a lord in Switzerland or whatever. Black people can only go to their manifestation date when they were brought over. That's it.
Sure. But I agree with all of that. The only point I'm trying to make is that there is a difference between the Holocaust Museum and a memorial to Hitler. That's my point. Is I'm not suggesting let's get rid of the Holocaust Museum. I've been there. It's like a horrific experience that people should go and experience, because we shouldn't forget that shit happened. But while I appreciate the history and knowledge that I'm getting from that, to go and see something that was built to the, you know, greatness of Hitler would give me a whole different, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's a whole different experience.
I agree, but you cannot put Hitler and
It's an exaggeration to make a point, is what I'm saying.
I know, but you understand that it's not a good point because it's too far. It's way too far.
I don't think it.
I would be closer to exactly what I said earlier with oh man, what was the one she can't see and write and read? All I can think of is Hillary now.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I guess the more accurate point would be, you know, a statue of Hitler in his fucking full military gear with his arm out. You know what I'm saying? There's a difference between a history of Hitler and a celebration of not just him, but this horror. You know, if it, like, that's the problem I have with the statue is I don't think it is a memorial to the entire man. It's him on his horse in his uniform. He's like getting ready to lead a charge. I mean, it's a memorial to him fighting the fucking Civil War, which is not what he should be known for. Like, I 100% agree that people are complicated, and that the argument that we made about him fighting for his state, I don't think that was the right decision to make. But life is complicated. He's a complicated man in a complicated time in life who did what I'm assuming he thought was the best thing he thought at the time, right? And that's hard for people to do. And these aren't necessarily easy decisions to make at the time. It's easy to look back on him and recognize how, you know, whether the comments are incorrect or not, or the decisions are incorrect or not. I agree with all of that, but it does seem to be a monument to his action in the Civil War, which is different than just a monument to the man himself.
Exactly what you said is I think we're also trying to impose the morality of today on a person that lived however many years ago, 100 years ago.
Yeah, but it was starting to not be the morality
You're
at the time.
You're right. Morality was changing at the time, but it was still
and
changing.
he was,
matter of fact, it obviously was not the
which made it more complicated than it is today. Agreed.
Right.
Agreed. I agree with that. But he did, you know, 100 years ago, 100 years prior to that, it would have been, you know, like there would have been nothing to talk about. I mean, it would have just been what everybody accepted was, you know, normal and okay. He was in a time period where that was changing, and he chose to stay on the wrong side of history. And does that make him just that one thing? No, but you know, that we all kind of get stuck on what side of history we choose to be on when change is being made. You know what I mean? You know, it's when schools were being unsegregated. You know, I judging the people that were yelling and screaming at the black kids just trying to go to school based on our morality today would not be fair. But to not recognize the fact that change was in the air and people were talking about these things and people were able to hear these, you know, I mean, it wasn't like it was 200 years prior to that where they had no source of information suggesting that this shit wasn't right. And you know what I mean? And they were choosing one source over the other. And it was a more complicated choice than it is today, but it was, you know, but it was less complicated 100 years before. You know what I mean? Like, they were still making a conscious choice to go with one idea over another, as opposed to people that might not have even really been seeing more than one idea. You know what I mean?
You know, there's the whole set of, you know, segregation. There's there's always two takes on that, right? Because you know how we look at COVID now, how it destroyed a lot of businesses that'll never come back, you know, with the pandemic.
Sure.
Yeah.
What segregation also did was it destroyed a lot of Black business.
Yeah, we're
talking
talking about this.
schools, things like that that'll never come back.
Right.
You know, so that, hey, how y'all doing? So in that case, then it was good for some and horrible for others, you know, because then you integrate Black kids into an educational system that doesn't want them.
And you
So
know what?
what
Another
happens
point,
is, so what happens is they're not taught. They're not taught in the full capacity as they would when there were Black educators. Now
Well, I mean,
you have white educators educating Black children during those times that
yeah,
didn't really
educating
care.
white history.
yeah, but there's a flip side of that argument, which was that
Which what happened. I'm saying what I'm saying is that this
no, I
is
mean the
also a
educating
part of
part.
what went on. This is
I'm
what
not.
this in spite also along with this integration, we know what happened with the integration.
That's not what I mean. That's not what I was going to say. What I
Well,
was
hold
going
on.
to say.
So, Adam, I got one thing though. We're talking about changing morality over time. You realize that we have a president today who voted against segregation. He voted against the not segregation,
Integration.
integration. He didn't want the Black kids bused to schools to be in schools with white kids.
Okay.
And that's the sentiment, okay?
I don't
But
understand. I mean,
when
it
Trump
doesn't
said,
go against anything I'm
grab him by the
saying.
pussy years ago, they were like, string his ass up and hang him in public.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking
Yeah, we
about
have a
changing
president
morality.
that voted against that voted against
I'm the
integration.
one who's been saying this whole time that, like, even before this conversation today, I've been the one talking about how you can't judge people based on today's morality. I don't.
Well, and that's what we're putting. That's what we're putting towards
That
Robert
doesn't
E. Lee.
apply to everybody.
I don't disagree with it.
No, I agree.
You just muted yourself. Dot. We can't. It sounded like you were talking and then you muted yourself.
But yeah, so we can't hold people to the
I don't
standard.
think you. I don't think you can. I'm not suggesting that we hold him to today's standards. I'm suggesting that we hold him to the standards of the time that he was in. I think that he made a choice in that time period that I think was the wrong choice. I'm not trying to hold him to today's standards. And as far as yes, I don't disagree with what Dot's saying is there being a downside to segregation. However, a lot of kids weren't getting, not because people weren't trying very hard, but because so little money was going into Black schools. I mean, they were, they were sharing books that were a year behind or more. So I mean,
Yeah, probably a lot more.
it wasn't all a wonderful thing that was going on before the integration took place either.
Yeah.
There were downsides to that as well. And it is unfortunate that when big change happens, people do get, I mean, you're not wrong. People get hurt when big change happens. It's not easy. The people who are the first people, give me just a second, Jack just posted another thing. The people that are first to initiate big, important ideas that we agree with tend to get destroyed doing it. The people in the beginning of change don't tend to prosper very well, and we have to, I think, hopefully appreciate what they went through in those first steps to get us to hopefully the better place that we are today. Jack says, in college, my philosophy professor asked if you were born in the South in the time of slavery, would you be an abolitionist? Would you stand up against the unpopular opinion against the masses that you were born into? I would like to believe that, sorry, ran out of that I would as
In my
in my
beliefs, you should treat people as you want to be treated, meaning you can't be a slave owner, or would you be against it?
yeah. So I mean, that's kind of what we're saying about, should you judge people on today's morality? Because
Well,
you make a good point, Jack. And me as who I am today was there, I would stand up against it, right? But I think what your philosophy teacher's question is not you, the person you are today, based on all the information that you have today, but you, the person you would be in that time period with the information you had access to at the time. And it becomes a much tougher question. Of course, me wouldn't think it was okay, but that I wouldn't be me in
I
that
would
time.
like to believe that I would not be okay with physically harming another human being.
I would like to think that too. I'd like to think I'm not so full of myself as to recognize that the structure, like who I am today, is based on a building block of what I was taught and who I witnessed, right? Who my parents were and who my friends were in the community that I grew up in, whether I want that to be true or not,
Yeah,
it is.
even, and that's the really, really difficult part about seeing all the racists now and the white supremacists and all that, realizing that they had very little choice in their views. They grew up in that community. They were
Some of
fed
them.
this from
Some
like
of them.
birth.
It's the same
Some of them.
concept of gangbanging. The same exact concept of
Yeah.
gangbanging. You got gangbangers that grew up in that community. You can't just be like, oh well, you know, don't be a gangbanger. Hell, my mama was a gangbanger, my dad's a gangbanger, my uncle's a gangbanger,
Well,
so
it's
I'm a
not-
gangbanger.
Right. It's not even just don't be it. I wouldn't. That the argument is I wouldn't do that. Well, you're basing yourself on who you are. You wouldn't be you if that's what you grew up in. Absolutely
Not
right.
all of them come out, not 100% come out, oh, because I grew up, you know, banging, I'm gonna do that. I might go and be a doctor because I don't like it. So yeah,
And
you
here-
have those detractors and that happens.
And not everybody who's racist is because they were taught to be that way. There's plenty of people who were taught.
The country that was, oh well shit, I'm there are people who could take advantage of the country during times of slavery that did, but there were people who could not take advantage of the country at all. They were just born and they were slaves.
Yeah, I'm not talking. Yes, I'm not. But what I'm saying is
You had choices back then. You had the choice of if you were black, you had no choice.
Right.
If you were not black, you had a choice to be an abolitionist or to be a slave owner. So that in itself is the question or the off balance of this country. Like you,
And also, what I was saying is not everyone that fought for the Confederacy was like, yay, slavery.
I agree.
You know, a lot of people were like, hey, I need to protect my whatever little amount of earth that I own. I need to protect it.
That is
it's
true.
the same reason why you got people that join the military. Not everybody that join the military give a fuck about what's going on in the world in Iraq and Afghanistan and want to support and serve their country. No, they want the benefits. There's some people who join because they have no nothing else to do in life. They didn't know what
You
else
got
to
to
do.
pay for college.
You know, yeah, they're trying to pay for college. They want this or that. That's so because you join and join the military doesn't mean that, oh, well, you're conscious about the trials of America and the way the world is. No, some people just want to they went in because like I can get a benefit, I can get this, I can get that. That's what you sign up for the job for the benefits of it.
It's
There's
true.
there's a letter from Robert E. Lee to his wife that says that he believes that slavery is wrong, is fundamentally evil and wrong.
Yeah.
But again,
To be fair, what random people, I mean, Robert E. Lee was in a position that most people in the South were not in to understand what was going on and what he was fighting for, to be fair. He
Correct.
was not just some country kid who was like, you're gonna what? I mean, there were a lot less educated people who essentially had no fucking clue what was going on other than people were trying to fight them and they were not gonna take it, right? I agree with that. And you're right, there are definitely soldiers that don't fight. I have a unique situation where I speak with people who have served a lot. And while most of them I find to be awesome, great people that, have, a real like loyalty and strength to them that other people don't have. That's definitely not always the case. Some of them are pieces of shit that, that went because they wanted a place where they could shoot people and get away with it. I mean, there's those people as well. And there's people who are decent people that didn't go because they believe in fighting for their country, but thought it would give them a leg up in life. I don't know that, there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. I was going to say before, not everybody is racist because they grew up racist and because their foundation was built that way either. I mean, there's lots of people who grow up and choose to hate other people because they're not happy with the way their life is going, despite everything that they were taught and despite the way they were raised. I mean, I think there are parents out there who are disgusted with who their kids have grown up to be compared to the house that they raised them in. So it's not always that either. It's often that. But sometimes, yeah, sometimes you wonder if they are. I mean, I guess it depends on what your definition of racist is, but you have to wonder sometimes if people aren't just taking on the ideas of a group that allows them to do what they want to do and behave the way they want to behave, regardless of how they actually believe. You know what I mean?
Those races look like they're having a good time. They really do. And like the mudding and the guns and the shit like that, that looks like fun. It does. But not enough for me to like say, someone's not a human,
But if you're maybe somebody who's working class who got laid off, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and you're pissed
just a
off and you're
champion.
angry and you might not really think it's another group's fault, but joining in on the group that does gives you the ability to get angry and bitch and moan and talk shit. And you like that. So you do it, even though you might not really think it's the people you're yelling at's fault. I mean, there's all kinds of
Sure. I mean,
shit out there.
that is and exactly what Hitler did. Hitler took hold of all the people that were really pissed off
Right.
that Germany was poor and was having to pay back all this crap money from a war that they lost, and felt like they had no way to be proud of who they were and what they were doing and everything. And Hitler stepped up and said, "No, we're the race that should be ruling the world. Don't feel sad. Don't feel that. We should be in charge of everything." And Hitler was able to grab all those people that were mad, sad, hungry, poor, and get them behind him, even though he was doing terrible, terrible things.
Well, I won't say to be fair because I don't want anybody to be fair to Hitler, but to be honest, when he began to get people to rally against him, he didn't get people to rally with him with the ideas of eliminating the Jews. They were just a group of people that were keeping his people down, that he could rally people
Sure.
towards him by talking badly about, but he wasn't saying, come and support me and we'll march them all into ovens. When he, you know what I mean? Like he was smart about it.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying, is that what he did say was, he said that you deserve better.
Right.
Everyone in this country deserves better than what they have and should have it.
Not everybody in this country.
And then,
People like us in this country deserve it. Because
the Jews into the ovens.
Yeah, to be clear, the Jews were part of Germany at the time. A lot of them were, at least, not all of them, but there were plenty of Jews in Germany that he was talking badly about at the time. Yes. They weren't just people off in foreign lands. They were people's neighbors.
Tribe Jews.
Huh?
No.
Oh. Yeah, but no, you're right. In fact, essentially all dictators start off
it's one of those, like, the game in New York where they have the shell and the thing underneath the shell. It's like they tell you everything you want to know, and then they have that little peanut that you can never actually figure out what shell it's underneath, where they're doing these like terrible things and getting really rich off of it.
Well, I think as human beings, we tend to do better when we have an enemy that we're fighting against. Yeah.
You have someone to blame.
Right.
I just finished watching this thing, and it was about a Dr. Death. I watched that on I think it was Netflix. I don't remember what it was.
Dr. Death,
the guy never believed anything was his fault. He always blamed it on someone else. It was.
You talking about Dr. Kevorkian?
No, this is a different one. This is like a guy in Texas that was like supposed to be a brain surgeon, but was like killing people and accidentally like making them freaking paraplegics. Yeah, it's real bad stuff. So, he was also doing like a shitload of coke, so that didn't help him. but in that he always blamed everyone else, and it's easy. It is the easy way out to blame somebody else, and
Sure.
Hitler knew it, and most tyrants know it. They blame somebody else, and then they get everyone behind them and take control.
Right. Right.
That's good.
Right.
I gotta ask y'all twice.
I mean, Trump, that kind of, Trump did a little bit of that, right? I mean,
Oh,
it
we're
was.
not going to start there.
Okay.
Don't start there. That's a whole nother one. That's a whole nother episode.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. That is what dictators do.
All right, brother.
Yeah, it's getting late. We were almost on 4. Well, I guess technically we started at 3:30, so we're a little over 3 hours.
That's good. We had the moment of silence early in the middle, and
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that.
I think we
We are
did a
gonna, I
solid
think
3.
we're gonna try to look into the idea that we can just come back into the meeting without getting permission, so that
Only us. So
yeah, right, exactly. I think you could. I might be wrong. I think you can actually say this person can, and this person can, and this person can.
oh man, I don't like that idea.
Why?
I think you'd lock us out.
Oh no, I meant like even when we start inviting people on, they can't just
Oh, I
pop
see.
in
Yeah.
the middle of nothing. Just the three of
Yeah.
us would be able to, is what I meant.
Okay.
Hey Jack, thanks for listening, man, and
Jack.
participating. That's awesome. We really appreciate it. We'll try to figure out something cool to do to thank you properly. And
Hey,
if
shout
you're
out to
ever
my cousin Jack. brother.
all right. If you ever want to come on the show and talk, man, we'll bring you on, dude. So let us know, and you can pick the topic. We'll talk, debate with you on it. So if that's something you're interested in, we'll do that. What's up? Yeah, he says love it. Cool. Talk to Victor. We'll set it up as soon as next week if you want. You let us know. You pick the topic, whatever your little heart desires. And sweet, he's sweet. All right, you let us know. We'll make it happen next week. I love it. That's awesome. Cool, man. We really appreciate it. Thanks for listening. All right, Dot. Love you, brother.
Bye, guys.
All right, love you, brothers.
All right, man.
Peace.
Later.
It's like, yeah, come back.